In a land far, far away, behind a pair of microphones, two generic guys said that most novel of phrases. We should start a podcast. And after months of postponing and rescheduling, they're finally ready to make it everyone's problem. The Dork Place presents Shit I Love with People I Like. New episode every Wednesday. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Shit I Love with People I Like. There's Chase. Take it away. Today is Chase's episode.
Hello, good morning. How are you doing, AJ? How's the morning going for you?
You know what? I can't complain, but I probably still will. You know how it
That's
is.
fine. We have a lot to complain about today. Or at least I do. But no, thanks for everyone joining to the first AM edition of the Sill Pill, as it is colloquially named. Today we are talking about something that you've probably seen in news headlines. We are talking about Star Citizen, because that game is a almost entirely asterisk. There's lots of asterisks involved with Star Citizen. Crowdfunded game, and has recently surpassed the $800 million crowdfunding mark, which every time that this happens, there's news articles, gaming articles about, how much, how does a game get to this level, et cetera, et cetera. But that being said, AJ, I'm curious, what is the most money you have ever spent on a game?
Oof. I have two answers for it, because on the one hand, I say the game I've probably spent the most money on, the first thing that comes to mind is games I've bought a million times. And I've bought virtually every edition of Final Fantasy X at cost, or it's one of those I've haven't waited for sales or anything on any of those. Those are my first thought, but honestly, I gotta confess, it's Marvel Rivals. As someone who was never into looter shooters, never really played Fortnite or anything like that, Marvel Rivals quickly became you know what, I've got a little bit of money extra, I like that costume, I'm gonna go ahead and pick up that costume.
Okay.
And so probably, it's in the hundreds probably of me just going, I'll pick that up, and it's all cosmetics. It affects absolutely nothing.
Right. Yeah, the most money I've spent, and I'm pulling it up now, the most money I've spent on a game is Star Citizen. Now, I am not a Star Citizen whale, if that makes sense. It does tell you how much. Oh God. It does tell you how much. Now, keep in mind, this is over the course of 13 years. So if you think about your annual gaming budget, it's probably higher than this. The amount I have spent in total, which does include at some point the subscription I had, you would get subscriber perks and stuff like that. You pay $20 a month and stuff like that. And I did that for about a year. I'm at $617.69 on Star Citizen. Which is a lot of money. I hate pulling that up because I'm always like, it's only $200. Oh God. So I am not a whale of Star Citizen. Whales in Star Citizen equate to the value of some luxury cars in Star Citizen.
I will re-clarify. So I was just thinking of video games, but if we're talking games in general, I have to also shout out that I am, or was for a while, very much a whale in the Magic the Gathering community.
Okay.
I have upwards of 12 commander decks. I have some that are almost entirely foil cards. I have some that are I have one deck that's almost entirely in Japanese. So like I definitely understand I enjoy this game. I spend a lot of my disposable income, whatever the hell that used to mean, on this game.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you bring up Magic the Gathering because I think that, with what we talked about a week or two ago about the Nintendo Switch pricing and stuff like that, I do genuinely feel that video games as a whole are undervalued by their consumers. Back in the 2000s, I was really big into Magic. I like to give context. I've seen decks today, and I'm like, I don't even recognize what these cards are. Like, just the layout has changed, all of that. Like the last expansion I ever put money into was Nemesis. So really long time ago. But yeah, I was also in that camp of like, I was getting a lot of cards, spending a lot of money. There was a tabletop game called Mage Knight that I played, and I tried to do like some of the mini painting and stuff like that. But then you get into like Warhammer and all of that. Like, people spend thousands upon thousands of dollars on these like physicalized games, like tabletop, trading card, all that stuff. And no one really bats an eye. No one says that it's predatory and stuff like that. But when someone says like, "Hey, what if we charge $90 for Mario Kart?" People are like, "What?" And I'm like, there's models that are like thousands of dollars out there for Warhammer.
And I will say, when it comes to tabletop, or when it comes to trading card games, always buy on the secondary market. Buy singles, do not buy packs. That's gambling, and it is incredibly predatory. So there are predatory aspects of like trading card games and stuff like that. But
sure,
I see where you're coming from in the others.
Yes. Yeah, like the idea of like you go to your local game store, you buy a pack of Magic, which like I used to come with like 12 cards usually, and you don't know what you're going to get. You're guaranteed like a rare card in every pack. But yeah, like you just never knew. I mean, back when I first started playing, you didn't even know which cards were rare. You had to go get magazines to find out the rarity of cards. But yeah, it is funny that when we look at a game like Star Citizen, or even like FIFA, 2K, Marvel Rivals, Fortnite, like people pump hundreds to thousands of dollars in these games, and like some people don't bat an eye, some people call it predatory. There's all these types of discussions going on about it. But Star Citizen catches a lot of flack because that store page is very shocking to a lot of people. When you do see commas in the price tags of some of the stuff you can get for Star Citizen. But that brings us, I think, into the main chunk of this discussion. Now, I kind of want to turn this to you because you watched the hour and 15-minute gameplay reveal from CitizenCon last year. Tell me about it from your perspective.
Okay, so let me preface this by saying all I have ever heard of Star Citizen, I was not familiar with anything about it. The only thing I had ever heard was from this person right here, that direction, telling me, "Oh, it's this really awesome flight simulator, you have to play it." And when I hear flight simulator, I think, Microsoft Flight Simulator. I'm imagining like, okay, so this is like a space flight sim, and I'm like, what are we just like flying around visiting planets and stuff? Maybe thinking like, what is it, No Man's Sky? Yep. Where you go around just visiting planets and stuff, basically. That's what I had in my head. And so I was like, okay, as cool as this sounds, whatever, I'll just let Chase be hype about Chase's thing. Then, out of the blue, in preparation for this episode, Chase sends me this hour and 15-minute gameplay reveal of something called Squadron 42. And I'm like, you know what? I got some work to do. I'm gonna watch this while I do the work I need to do. And within 5 minutes, I'm seeing like I'm getting Helldivers vibes where I'm seeing like this army, these soldiers coming through, and Henry Cavill pops up on the screen. And for those who don't remember, because it's been a long time, there was a point in my TikTok career, in my content creation career, when my identity was defined by Ki-Adi-Mundi and Henry Cavill. And that was it. And so I immediately see this and I'm like, you could have just sold me on this. But then we keep going. And this hour and 15 minutes, I would say 45 minutes of it is an incredibly cinematic science fiction experience. There is like, and we're talking like Henry Cavill's in it, Gillian Anderson, Mark Strong, Gary goddamn Oldman. Like, I'm watching this just like, wait, what?
Did you get to the very end?
Yeah. Like,
did you not see who I was telling you wait for?
Oh no! Oh, Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill's in it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Sorry, I was like, yeah. Like Mark Hamill, Luke fucking Skywalker is in this game, and I got Mass Effect vibes. I got Star Trek or Star Wars Squadrons vibes. Like, so I'm over here like going. And at first, oh my god, it took me in so many ways. So at first, it starts off as this huge cinematic experience. All these big name actors are popping up in these different things. Then a fight begins, and we end up like, I see us in the cockpit of a ship, and I see where the thought process is like they're targeting aspects of the ship as opposed to just shooting the ship itself. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of a cool mechanic. And I see like, we're flying around, and my thought is like, okay, this is like Star Wars Squadrons. So maybe this is all like Squadrons and the rest is cinematic. And then there comes a section where it becomes a first person shooter. And like, there's like some stealth aspect to it where you're like hiding and like people are like aliens are going above. There's this whole alien race and alien language. And as I'm watching, I'm like, this is one of the most unique things I've seen. It feels like I'm watching, like, as Gary Oldman is giving these tactical directions, I'm watching like a Star Wars space battle happen. It felt like what I saw in my head when I read the Thrawn trilogy the first time. Like, Gary Oldman is Thrawn sitting there at the helm shouting directions, and what's his name? Captain, what is it, Peloton? I know it's not Peloton, but you know what I mean. Is there, that's Mark Strong, and they're giving these directions, and you've got this like giant holographic view of the battle, and it's just like, it's really interesting. Immediately I stopped whatever work I was doing to just watch this trailer, and yeah, I can see immediately where I'm like, this trailer gives, or gameplay reveal, it gives Squadrons, it gives Rogue Squadron. It's very Star Wars. Stylistically looks very Mass Effect, which is awesome because I love Mass Effect. It really, my biggest takeaway was, what if Mass Effect had space fights? And I was like, okay, this is cool.
Yeah, so the trailer, the gameplay reveal is awesome. I think that when they have shown us little snippets here and there of what this little opening thing, and they've said this is the opening of the game. This is how it starts. And it is really cool. Like, seeing that last year at CitizenCon, like the whole thing played out for us. Like, it was like, okay, this is really awesome. Like, this is what we've been waiting 13, 14 years for now. And not to rain on the parade of Squadron 42, this is where the controversy comes in. It's because this really epic thing that you saw that many people have seen, that like when this was debuted, like it was picked up by like non-gaming publishing, like, news sites. And they're like, this is insane that this is where video games are today. This game is slated to release, like if you watch the gameplay trailer, it says coming 2026. The frustrating part about Squadron 42 and Star Citizen as a whole is we got a trailer nowhere near the scope of this, but we got a trailer at one point that said that Squadron 42 was releasing in 2016. That's where a lot of the controversy of Star Citizen comes from, is lots of mismanagement and missed, deadlines and stuff like that. Like, oh, this is going to be here then, this is going to be there then, all of this stuff, and it's just been misdate after misdate after misdate. That being said, no one has actually, outside of like internal, builds, no one has played Squadron 42. We've all only played Star Citizen. And the difference between the two is Squadron 42 is the single player, cinematic, linear. Well, we know it's going to have some open world aspects to it in some way. Think about like probably Star Wars Outlaws or something like that. That is the single player campaign, if you will. Star Citizen is the multiplayer MMO sandbox version of Squadron 42. So that's what we have our hands on right now. We have the alpha build of Star Citizen, and you can like play it right now if you want, and you can do whatever you want in it.
Okay, so walk me through. I'm opening Star Citizen for the first time.
Yes.
What is this game, and how does it kind of work? How does it start you off?
So again, I'm going to give you the no nuance November version of this.
Mhm.
The way that this game works is you boot up Star Citizen, you join the persistent universe, and you make a character like you would in any RPG, and it's got a really good character creator. You can make yourself, you can scan your face on a webcam and get it close to that, stuff like that, which is cool. And then you wake up in an apartment building, and you get out of bed, and you walk around. You live. You are literally a Star Citizen. Like you are a person. You are not Luke Skywalker. You're not Han Solo. You're not Captain Picard. You are a person, and you can you'll start in a city. There will be like a tram system that you'll go to navigate, and you probably, with your entry fee, you'll have a spaceship that you can fly. So you will be able to go to your hangar and grab your spaceship, and then you can fly it around, and you can do missions, you can go exploring, you can go join different aspects of the game. Like there are first person shooter, like extraction shooter type things, there are bounties, you can be a criminal, you could be a pirate, you can do what I do. I am like a space trucker. Like I just grab cargo and bring it from one location to the other. Like I don't do barely any combat. Like the entirety of Squadron 42's gameplay trailer was all combat, like capital ship combat. And you can never touch that in Star Citizen. You can just go mining. You can go to like a place where fights did break out, and you can go with a salvaging ship and then tear apart all the ships that were lost in battle, and you can sell that for cash. So there's lots of stuff
Can you get
do.
accidentally caught in crossfire though? Like
yeah, 100%.
Okay,
like,
so I was like, you can intentionally be like, I don't want to be in combat, but combat could find you by accident.
One of the, and again, we could spend an entire episode just talking about a single facet of Star Citizen, but I don't think that's super productive for what we're trying to get on. Like the whole appeal of Star Citizen is the emergent gameplay. Like the idea is, I want to be a cargo hauler, and I'm going to go and deliver. Someone wants me to bring, this many units of starship fuel to this ground outpost. Well, there could also be someone who has a mission that is like a bounty hunting mission at that same outpost. And so there could be a fight going on at that outpost where you're just trying to deliver the cargo. So you probably want to bring someone who can man your turrets or have a fighter escort, because you never know, because there's more lawless spaces in the game, and there's obviously more secure systems in the game. So like you do want to do a lot of planning for stuff like that, because you could also go, if you're on a really popular trade route, like let's say the economy is saying that, hey, um, this place is selling, this material for really low, and then, another place will sell it for really high. You could be a pirate and go, I'm going to camp out at these places where things are really low, and I'm going to wait for people to buy their cargo, and I'll blow them up, and then I'll steal the cargo and go sell it myself.
Okay, now that sounds really cool. That sounds really ambitious and really cool.
Yeah.
I do want to bring up something that I heard you say, and yeah, it's in our notes, but I heard you say with your purchase. So explain, because in today's market, in today's world, we have an overabundance of pretty cool free-to-play games.
Right.
And they're, like we have all of these like like the Zenless Zone Zeros, the Honkai Star Rails, all these like open world RPG style games. I don't really play many of them, but they exist. And with the Fortniteification of video games, how do you feel about what is the cost of entry to Star Citizen? Why is it that way? And what do you get for that investment?
Sure. So the base cost of entry on any normal day where there's not like a promotion or a sale going on is $45. There are 2 ships that you can buy, and they are like the most bare bones basic spaceships you can buy. Like they can hold a little bit of cargo. There's like a more combat focused one and then a more cargo focused one. So you can kind of get into one or two of the other. So it's $45. That gives you access to the game for life. You never have to spend another penny if you just pay that initial $45. They have what is called, I believe it's just starter packs, or game packages. And the most expensive game package is around $1,100. And that comes with a capital ship. And so you have a huge spaceship, and then it also comes like, I think you get 2 extra small ships there. You do not need to do that. That capital ship can be purchased in game with the in-game currency that you just doing missions and trading and stuff like that. You can buy basically any ship in the game that is flyable right now. But yeah, they also have like a $60 package that, if you want to really focus on mining, you can get the new mining ship that is $60, and it'll give you a ship that has a mining laser. You can go blow up rocks whenever you want. There's a cargo ship that, you can get for $60. So anywhere between $45 and $1,100 will get you a ship.
Okay. And it feels weird because like would you describe, so what my immediate question becomes, the where my brain goes is to pay to win.
Yes.
And so I know that it's not, or is it like is there a competitive aspect to the game? Yeah. Do you feel like this model encourages a pay to win system, or do you feel like there's kind of a balance to it? I don't know. How do you feel about that?
So the pay to win aspect of Star Citizen is, if you listen to 10 different content creators around Star Citizen, you'll get 10 different answers on, is it pay to win? The answer is no, it is not pay to win. The reason for that is if you pay $45, right? And you get the Aurora, and that's this little ship that's got these 2 little weapons and a little bed, and then it's got a little cargo bed that it can hold like 2 or 3 boxes. You're not taking down a capital ship with that spaceship. It's not happening. Like, no matter how good of a pilot you are, it's just not happening. If I said, I'm going to spend $1,000 on the Polaris, which is a huge capital ship, it has like huge nukes it can deploy. It's got like 14 different turret bays. It has 1,000 missiles, but the pilot can't fire any of the guns. So you cannot win a fight just because you spent $1,000. Like, if you buy the most expensive ship and you go fly it, you won't be able to do anything but fly it. Because this is a multiplayer game, the idea is you're going to crew this with like 20 people. and that you'll have engineers, you'll have turret operators, you'll have a torpedo operator, you'll have a missile operator, you'll have a navigator, you'll have a pilot, you'll have a tactical commander. Like you will have all of these people. So what you will see a lot of times is orgs or like guilds or clans will say, "Hey, this ship is $1,000. We want a crew. Let's all pool our money together, and we'll agree that it's going to the org leader's account, and then we can always use that as an organization." Like that's the intention. That's not how everyone always does it, but
Right.
that is like talking to people who I've played with who have spent 40, 50, $60,000 on the game at this point. Yeah, that is like what they do is they're like, yeah, like a lot of these ships that I have like have been pooled together, with like the organizations I'm in. So like there's that aspect of it. There is an argument to be made that, based on the alpha state of the game, the balance is not there. Like there are more profitable things than others. Like if I spend $600 on a cargo ship, I can simply just load more cargo and do more cargo missions than I could with the $45 ship. So I would have a head start there as far as money making potential in the game. Um, so yes, there is an aspect of that, but it's also like as the game progresses, you will learn that like I have a cargo ship that is very large and is meant to be operated by 4 people. I also have a smaller cargo ship that should be operated either solo or with another person. I can make more money on my own with the smaller ship than I can the bigger ship because I'm alone. I need more people to help load that ship because it takes so long and to operate it that it makes more sense to make more money with the smaller ship. If that makes any sense.
So it does. And here's where this is like immediately as we're explaining this, and I'm on the website for Star Citizen right now, just kind of looking at it, and man, I feel like this is an incredibly ambitious and unique project. I have so many concerns
Yes.
about it. Like the things that I notice immediately. Okay, that's really cool. You mean I can have a ship manned by 40 people, and everybody's got their own job? That seems really cool and wildly unsustainable.
Yes.
What happens when players drop off from the game? What happens when, what happens when you and your crew can no longer meet up? I've played D&D long enough to know how this works, and then are you out this massive, sometimes massive investment, and like how do you retain players? And the cherry on top that we haven't even gotten to is the PC requirements for this game are not light.
No.
This is a whale game if I ever saw one, in the sense that it requires an entry fee before you even get to the actual game. Your PC has to meet a certain requirement, which is already a barrier to entry.
Yeah.
And then you have, this is a game that is not free to play, that does have a barrier to entry, that if you want to do certain things, like I'm curious, a question I have is about the in-game currency and like grinding for new ships and stuff like that. What is the rate with that? Because do I need to play this game for 4 years to be able to afford the thing that I want? Or I have to sink in, thousands of dollars potentially of my own money? Like, it immediately I start to see where the red flags start to pop up with this game.
100%. To go with the sustainability, that has been a concern since day one, of like, yes, the idea of this huge capital ship, like you're on the Star Trek Enterprise or Starship Enterprise, right? Yeah, like sometimes it's hard to even just get 2 friends together to play Call of Duty, right? Imagine getting 30 people. And just from experience, and also just kind of what Cloud Imperium Games, the developer of Star Citizen, which is known as CIG, which we'll probably refer to a lot as we go on, has said they are working on at some point having AI controlled crew. They call them AI blades, where the idea is that if you do not have a full personed crew, you can get an AI turret operator. The caveat to that is they want it to be that the AI can be good, but will never be, the person who is able to get more people involved in their ship will always have an advantage. The AI will never be as good as a person, as the idea. We'll see how that can balance out. It's not in the game yet. The second thing is, this is where the org comes in. The organization is, when I have played with an active org, and they're very like Star Citizen does a pretty good job of making it very easy to find organizations. Like I have done mining organizations, I've done combat organizations, and like it took no time to get a fully crewed Polaris, and it is super cool. Like when you have a Discord chat full of like it is just the Polaris crew, and like you have everyone in a seat, and then you have people in the back of the ship, doing.
Oh shit! No, not again. Chase, what have I done? Hang on. I need to. Oh, there you are. All right, you're back now. Sorry.
Great. No, you're good. But yeah, it is this. It is a really cool feeling to have like a fully crewed ship, and it is not as difficult, I think, as people think it is to get that fully crewed ship. But to move on to your other point.
What the hell? How did you disappear again? Immediately. What?
I haven't touched anything.
Okay, there you are. I don't know. It just to get to the other point, and then you cut out.
Yeah. So like for the barrier of entry, this game has always presented itself as being a hardcore PC game. And I find this to be interesting because this used to be, and you can say it's better for it not being this way, but this used to be a selling point of PC games, was like, it's cool when a game is hard to run. Like if we look back to like Crysis, like, oh yeah, like Crysis is awesome because it's hard to run. And I remember like Battlefield 2 at that point was like a hard to run game, and it was really cool if you could run that game. So like I like that games are more accessible now. I think it's better for everyone else. But like when games like Star Citizen come around, and it's like, yeah, this is a hard to run game. Like it's pushing a lot of boundaries. Like there's a lot of stuff going on. Like there is that back push, and I'm like, yeah, I get the back push. But also like this is kind of, in a way, this is the cost of doing what a lot of people ask for. Like when people complain about loading screens in Starfield, when people complain about like the something like Star Wars Outlaws not having the openness they wanted, or No Man's Sky not having the detail they wanted, or Elite Dangerous being confined to the ship and not having like all these certain things, like this is the cost. Like the things you want are expensive. The one thing about Star Citizen that like is almost impossible to not deny is it's doing something that no other game is doing. It is trying to answer all of those requests and desires from a lot of people who play games even close to adjacent of this. And it's hard. And we can certainly argue, is the way they're going about it the best way to go about it? I think no. But what they are doing is unique. It is, unprecedented, and it's hard to do. It's not easy. So there is an aspect of that for me that is like, I get why it is. That being said, I do know plenty of people that I play with that are not on the most up-to-date PCs, that are on like very old hardware, relatively old hardware, I think is probably more apt to say, and do not have an issue running the game. Like, yes, it doesn't run as smooth as like something like what I experience, or even people who have better computers than I do, but like you can still play it on a modest system.
Let's talk about Cloud Imperium games.
Yes.
Which, like, what have they done? What are they known for? Because again, I will tell you where I'm seeing where I am. Oh, god damn it, you disappeared, but I'm still gonna keep talking. I don't know why this keeps happening. We're gonna come up with a better solution next week. Because I don't know why this keeps happening. There you are. But so are they self-publishing this game?
Yes.
Like, okay.
No publisher. This is not EA. This is not Microsoft or Sony or anyone. This is 100. It started on a Kickstarter in 2013. And it has been almost entirely crowdfunded up until this point. Investors have backed this project, which does not honestly get included in that 800 million price point.
Speaking of that 800 million, we haven't mentioned that at all. The reason that Star Citizen is back in the conversation, correct me, it has crossed 800 million.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. It has crossed $800 million in crowdfunding for this game. Now that includes the Kickstarter and like all of the in-game purchases and everything else, right?
Correct. So that includes, and I may be wrong on some of this stuff. That is the Kickstarter money. That is the ships that have been purchased, the skins that have been purchased, all the cosmetic stuff, the subscriber, if you spend $10 or $20 a month, depending on what level you want, all of that, all of the packages that have been purchased, that is included in that. What I believe is not included is investment backing. And I think that's it. I think it's just investment backing. And again, I could be wrong on that.
And that feels like an insane amount of money has been made for this game, which regale me, explain to me why, like, for example, explain to me why Squadron 42 has been in development since 2016 was when it was originally supposed to be released. So we're talking in development since probably 2014, 2015.
Right.
We still have no one with hands on that game, and yet we have raised $800 million toward the production of this game. The math isn't mathing for me. What do you make of that math?
So, how is it still? This is something that like so many people have gone super deep into on this. How did it reach 800 million? Number one, kind of what I just said. Nothing like Star Citizen exists. It is being sold on potential. Like this could be the greatest game of all time for a lot of people, especially like it has a much older demographic of players. That this is the game they're expecting to basically play for the rest of their lives, and I think that's a ridiculous thing, but that's how a lot of people, you go to, r/Star Citizen, that's how a lot of people express it, is like, the reason I'm putting money into this is because I don't play video games. Like, I don't play Call of Duty. I don't play Madden. I don't play Final Fantasy. Like, this stuff looks cool. I've always wanted to live in Star Trek. This is my opportunity to do that. And I have dispensed, excess income, and I'm going to put it towards the game. They have caught a lot of flack in the past, 100%, and rightfully so, for missing these dates. Like, I will be very concerned if by December 2026 we do not have Squadron 42 in our hands. I think when you are 10 years past your first initial, I don't even think it was the first initial, like, I think it was supposed to be like 2014, 2015 was like the first, like, oh yeah, we're going to have it ready by then. That didn't happen. The other thing, and I don't want to use this as like an excuse or anything, but for CIG is a lot of this is player driven, is where the game is today is based on player feedback. Is it would be cool if we could do this, we could do that, we want to see more of this, we want to see more of that. And CIG, because they don't have a publisher to tell them, no, don't do that, just get the game out, they have been able to just listen to the community. They take feedback, they make decisions the community likes, they make decisions the community doesn't like. And it's just one of those things is they have had this consistent feature creep. Now, for the elephant in the room, CIG, this is their first game, first two games. So keep that in mind. These are essentially two different games they're developing side by side.
Right.
So if you want to be really gracious, which I don't think we should, you could say that each game has cost around 400 million to make at this point. That's being too gracious.
That is a lot of money. And I understand where you are coming from with the, like, this, and I mean, hell, I've been very vocal about wanting to pay more to creators and wanting creators to make more and understanding that. But I mean, this is like Dune 2. Like this budget is so much. And like, I immediately start to question how much of this money is actually being used on the development of this game. At what point, and this is where we can transition to that discussion about people calling it Scam Citizen and people saying that at this point in the development, at this much money that's been raised, at this much time that's been invested, at what point are they just farming these whales for something that might never come to pass?
Sure. So Scam Citizen is something that gets thrown around all the time. And even if I weren't as into Star Citizen as I was, and Star Citizen is a frustrating thing at times, like even just playing it can be frustrating. But I think that the term Scam Citizen is like full stop incorrect. I think when we look at games that are scams and other other Kickstarter things that just, are pump and dumps, basically, Star Citizen does not follow that in any capacity. Is it a bad usage of your money? I think we can have that conversation. Is it a game that you think is worth the money that people put into it? That is a different conversation. Is it a scam? If you look at where it started, where when we got our first hands-on thing with Star Citizen, it was called the Hangar module. And so let's say you spent $80 on a spaceship. What you could do was that spaceship would be placed in a hangar and you could walk around it. And some of the ships you could even walk inside. You could not fly them. You could not do anything. You could maybe interact with a door or two and be like, yep, this is the model. This is the interactivity of this model that we have made. And it's in this hangar. And you can look at it and take screenshots and be like, ooh, look at the money I spent. Ooh. Fast forward to 2025, we are in a completely different place. There are 2 star systems now. There were supposed to be 100. Here we are. They have scaled things back, which I think is a good thing. But there are multiple career paths. There are hundreds of ships to select. There are tons of locations, tons of environments, the biomes. Like if you've played No Man's Sky, you go to the ice planet and then you go to the lava planet and then you go to the beach planet. In Star Citizen, the planets will have the ice biome and then the jungle biome and then the ocean biome all on the same planet. There's a planet called ArcCorp that is just a city planet. It's like Coruscant, basically. So like they've put a lot of work into the technology, and it is unlike anything else, but this is so far removed from what it was that they have put so much effort into the game. And one of the other things that CIG does that I don't want to say no other developer, very few developers do, and CIG is probably one of the better ones, is there is a weekly update on the progress of the game every single week. What has the team been up to? And it can be as simple as the team fixed an arm animation in Squadron 42 that was no longer working. Okay, that is progress. It may not be as exciting as like we got the first module of this system up and running and it'll be released next week. Sometimes you get that news, but like we will get stuff on like AI updates. We will get stuff on like graphics API updates every single week. Like people who cover Star Citizen week to week will tell you like it gets boring because of how much information they're giving you every single week, which you don't get. There are games on Steam early access that like have not had an update in years
Mhm.
and still get money pumped into them. Like I don't mean to like I'm not going to call out any developers or any games, but there are games that like get tons of backing. They're made by people who are popular and like have not had an update in months, if not years, and don't get the same criticism. And they're working on smaller scale games as well. So this is where I think a lot of people still have that faith. They have that view of potential. Is that the work has never stopped on Star Citizen. And that's where I say you can't call it a scam because of the work that has gone into it and the transparency of the work. Could there be things they do better, like working with the community before they make like huge sweeping changes to like flight mechanics or combat mechanics? Yes, they could do a better job of that. But at the same time, it means they're still working on it and still developing and adapting the game to suit the player base more. So that's my soapbox on why it's not a scam.
And I hear that and I agree, and I don't think that, I think where the trouble comes in is like, so Darxerxes even said in the chat, like, if it were a scam, it wouldn't be this big. And I'm like, but maybe not a scam, maybe we use the word con. Like, and what I mean by that is it's so hard because I feel so cynical, and partly because I'm not a member of the community.
Sure.
I just look at it as, it feels like this ambitious project with these really high hopes for it, which is great. But my fear is it a carrot on a stick? At this point,
Yes.
is Squadron 42 something that they keep giving you? Do they keep giving you those weekly updates? Do they keep telling you, this is coming, just to keep you spending money on this game that they may never fully complete?
Yeah, I have the same fear. And the best way I have been able to personally justify it, and talking again to the people I play with, is what's crazy about Star Citizen for some people, not everyone, and I think everyone's entitled to feel how they want to feel, is that if Star Citizen were to shut down tomorrow, like servers down, everything goes away, it's not happening anymore. I spent $600 on the game. I got more than $600 worth of value out of Star Citizen at this point. Like this is a game that like I have put a lot of time into. It does not compare to the amount of time that some people have put into Star Citizen. And so talking to a lot of people who, like, again, the whales who have spent, $30,000 plus dollars, $50,000 plus dollars, have said, and this is how they feel. You cannot take away people's opinions and feelings. I've gotten my money's worth. Like, even though there are ships that they have pledged that have not even come to the game yet, they're like, yeah, I'll be bummed that I never got to play with those ships. But at the same time, what I got out of the experience in the past 13 years has been so fulfilling to me that I'm happy. And that and there's people who are like, if you go to the Reddit, the subreddit, for Star Citizen, there are people who be like, I put in $1,000 on the Kickstarter. I'm waiting for 1.0. There are other games I can play in the meantime. When 1.0 hits, I'm going to be stoked to jump in.
Well, and I would ask this. What if this were all Star Citizen ever were? They continue to do updates to this, maybe not at anywhere near the rate that you were promised. But let's say we never got Squadron 42 and this Star Citizen as it exists right now, with updates along the way, were all that Star Citizen ever was. Would you still be satisfied with that as a game?
Yes, asterisk. Like, as it stands today, let's say I'm gonna throw this out there. If they polish the bugs, like yesterday, I was going through the wormhole to get from one star system to the other, and it a bug happened to kick me right back out to the where I was in the beginning, and I was like, "Oh, let me try it again," and my ship just exploded. Like, just Star Citizen fuckery. If that went away and they just said, "Hey, we're just gonna tweak and balance things. We're not like it's just gonna be these two star systems. It's just gonna be the planets that we have. We're gonna add like new systems here and there, but it's not gonna drastically change. It's not gonna be this huge sprawling thing." It would be very disappointing. However, I would still play it until something else came along to take its place. I think that Star Citizen is in a playable asterisk space right
Well,
now.
how long has it existed in essentially the current form that it is now?
Essentially, the current form that it is now, where like you can kind of be a citizen, be a player in this, probably 6 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
Like
Like,
that is a long time to essentially creatively stagnate. Like, I'm not saying that they're not
Mhm.
making changes, they're not making updates,
Right.
but have they really innovated in that 6 years?
Yes, I think they have. They have innovated in some spaces, and they've definitely stagnated in a bunch of others. There are aspects of this game that, and everyone's going to have a different opinion on this. The cargo trading system of Star Citizen is, in my opinion, it's not done yet, but in its current state, it is second to none. Like, the cargo trading in something like Elite Dangerous is fine, but it is scrolling through menus, flying to a place, and scrolling through a couple more menus. In Star Citizen, it's very interactive. It is loading stuff. You can have the aliens loading mech help you with like cargo loading and stuff like that. So like there's cool stuff. Um, there's nothing like that. The mining in Star Citizen is good. Elite Dangerous's mining, in my opinion, is much better. And they have talked about how they're going to improve the mining. So yes, where they have stagnated, you can tell. Where they have innovated, you can also tell.
Mhm.
There are our friend playing with some people, where just the thought of we had this big capital ship, and I was like, oh, just fly your ship into mine, and they were like, what? I was like, just fly your ship into my ship and land it. And they're like, what do you can do that? And I was like, yeah, there's a hangar on my spaceship. Just fly into it. And they were like, they did it. And they're like, holy shit. Like, and I was like, yeah. And then we can go. And then like we did a bounty. And I was like, oh, this ship is more maneuverable. I'm going to stop my ship, go grab your ship, fly out of my ship, go take the bounty down, and then fly back into my ship. And they're like, this is insane. You can do this in a video game.
This is so cool. And this is what's
Yes.
frustrating. Well, this is
Yes.
what's frustrating to me though. And this is where I look at it. For this money, for this time investment, and I understand that they're working as an independent developer,
Right.
and that's awesome. But I'm like, at this point, we're 3 games deep into a series that could have had some of these features and then more in the next game and then more in the next game. Like, I feel like all of these are really cool. And my first question is like, why are we not doing this in like AAA titles? And I will understand, I will concede that we're not doing this in AAA titles because it's more expensive and you
Yes.
need the developers to invest that money, and the money on AAA titles is going to so many different things. But like, I hear that and I'm like, oh, that's a really cool mechanic. Is
So
that why I'm like innovative mechanics? I'm like, but the game itself,
100%. There is definitely an argument there to be made of like, to what end are we doing this? Like, is this actually fun? Like, for some people, the cargo, element is not fun. Like, loading boxes onto a spaceship isn't fun. For me, I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever. I love this. I love just picking up boxes, putting them in a spaceship, and then taking that
It's
cargo
like
to
you
another spot.
played Death Stranding and went, but what if I could do that in space?
This is Death Stranding without the beautiful storytelling. But like I have this pulled up because I think it's important.
Okay.
Is it's like the most expensive games of all time, and we can kind of put this in perspective. This is all in 2024 dollars.
This is production costs or
production plus marketing.
Okay. I
So
want to
like
make sure.
the full cost of the game. So I'm going to start here. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 from the original 2009, $366 million for a 8-hour single player campaign and a very good and robust multiplayer game. Marvel's Spider-Man 3, which isn't out yet, is at $400 million. Cyberpunk 2077, a single player game, open world, $500 million. Black Ops 3, which did not have a campaign, $600 million. The Modern Warfare reboot, $800 million. Black Ops Cold War, $850 million. Single player campaign and multiplayer. Genshin Impact, $975 million estimated. You will never guess this. Guess what the most expensive game ever made is?
Hold on. Let me think. Let me cook for just a second.
You're gonna get it wrong.
I know I'm gonna get it wrong, but I have a feeling it's gonna be something. It's gonna be something I don't expect. So I'm just gonna go with an obvious choice. Let's say WoW. Let's say World of Warcraft.
Nope.
Okay. What is it?
Monopoly Go. $1 billion to make.
What?
Yes.
That's insane.
And here's what's insane to me is, yes, I think there is if I could talk, there is a discussion to be had about the bloat of Star Citizen, the mismanagement of Star Citizen, the overcharging of spaceships, of microtransactions, macro transactions, as they've kind of been known in Star Citizen. There is a discussion around that, but that often like doesn't come up when it's like, I like Call of Duty games. I think they're super fun. You're telling me that a game like Black Ops Cold War, which is a fine game, there's nothing wrong with that game, that cost $850 million to make, and no one really bats an eye. Like, I do think that like the bloat of AAA games, it gets brought up in discussion a lot, but it's like, we don't get an article about how expensive Call of Duty is to make every year when Call of Duty comes out. We get an article every year when Star Citizen hits some.
We also get a Call of Duty game like every year or 2 years.
Yeah.
We are getting like a new product. It is essentially just a remastered version of the game before, but we're getting new products, new games, like new whole products, not like a new ship, like,
sure.
And what my thing is this. I see the potential and I see what Star Citizen is doing, and that is amazing. What feels egregious to me is that we don't have a mediocre game. Like, we don't have like we have like 7 Warhammer games that aren't any good, but we don't have one. Like, you don't even need all of the things that make Star Citizen wonderful to sell a game like Squadron 42. You need some of those like unique features that you talk about, like being able to seamlessly fly your ship into another ship and then get out and start, going about. Like, if the game was almost entirely just like space flight and you were doing that stuff and doing like, missions like cargo missions, if it were just a glorified spacewalking simulator, that would be cool. I just feel like, how do we not have anything marketable? And like, even from a capitalist perspective, I'm like, give me a mediocre game that I can sell to the masses, that's going to get more people in the product, that's going to actually make us revenue to get us to where we want to go with Star Citizen. You don't even have to, like, I'm not even expecting the Squadron 42, like what that cinematic trailer looked like. Like, just from a marketing standpoint, I'm like, you gotta be doing something with that money before the general population is going to look at this and they're going to call it Scam Citizen. They're going
Sure.
to say, why are you not giving us a product that we can interact with more than just that? Like, I think Star Citizen is great, and I want to see what they innovate and what they bring to gaming. But I also want to have an option to play like a game with it. You know what I mean? Like a different,
Sure.
like a
Yeah.
single player I can own and go back to game when I don't want to be part of the MMO, or if the MMO starts to stagnate, if people start to
So
drop off.
so two things to kind of go a little bit back is not to glaze Star Citizen too much. I think what happens so often is that we see the number 800 million and we're like, oh my gosh, 800 million. And it's like, this is over the course of 14 years.
Mm-hmm.
If we look at something like Call of Duty, like, even if we just pretend that it was an average of about $500 million to make each game of the past 13 years, you're still looking at $6 to $7 billion to make that franchise of a game that is just iterative of itself year after year after year after year. And that's not to take away from the developers of Call of Duty that they're not putting in work every single title, but one of the biggest complaints of Call of Duty is it feels very stagnant. You know, you get one really good game every couple of years, and then it's just a couple random titles that people will play just because it's Call of Duty. I think when you put in the perspective of the development over time, it is not as crazy as some people put it out to be. When you look at if you look at the cost of something like The Last of Us and how much money they've put in over the past 13 years, it's more than Star Citizen.
Then compare it to its peers. Like I'm saying, like World of
Yeah.
Warcraft. Like, I mean, money is being pumped into World of Warcraft every year, but we're getting expansions. We're getting, you know, a lot of new material that I would argue is not at all relative to like just getting a new ship.
I'm glad you said that because I think there is a good example, and it's not World of Warcraft. It is a game called Elite Dangerous,
Okay.
which is a game that I played. I have hundreds of hours in Elite Dangerous. It's an incredible game. This is a game that started as well as a Kickstarter a year after Star Citizen did, and it released in 2016, 2017 as a fully fledged released title, like ready to go, ready to play.
Which you can
Bugs
pick up on Steam for $5 right now
It's
on
always
sale.
on sale. It's a great game.
Sorry, I just looking
Yeah.
at it.
Yeah, it's a great game. I love Elite Dangerous. It is a complete game, and it has had 2 expansions since then. And within those expansions, it has also had significant, like, larger updates. Right? You can also, I would say, compare to a game called X4, which is another style. And then there's also obviously No Man's Sky as another one. Here's
So
where I
I'm
get. Oh, go ahead.
I'm looking at Elite Dangerous and I'm looking at like the reviews and I'm just at
I
a
don't want to see this.
glance I look at this and I go, so many of the things that you are pitching about Star Citizen feel they're at least advertised to be part of how Elite Dangerous runs. And so I'm like, how do we compare? These games came out around the same time as when they started development. We
Yep.
have a title that I can buy right now and jump
Yep.
into playing that has expansions versus we're still in alpha. And I know video games are different now with the alphas and the amount of
Right.
time a game remains in alpha, which I'm still a little too old to wrap my head around all the time. But how do you compare Elite Dangerous and Star Citizen in terms of like one having a complete project that they put out and the other one still being where it is?
So, how I compare the two games, because Elite Dangerous is an incredible video game. It really is. It is also considered like one of the best VR experiences out there. Period. And It is an awesome game. It has it is a one-to-one scale of the Milky Way galaxy as best we know it scientifically. There is a bubble of civilization that has popped up that revolves around our solar system. So you can go to Earth, you can go to Jupiter, you can go to there's really cool scientific calculations. Like the Voyager probe is in space where it would be in the year 3100. Like they've calculated that and put it there. So you can go see the Voyager probe. This is really cool. You can go to certain planets' surface, but like a terraformed Earth-like world, you cannot go down. It's very limited in its scope. Is
Okay.
probably the best way to put it. Is like I was bringing up, like the trading in Elite Dangerous is you go to a space station, you land at the space station, a menu pops up. What commodities do you want to buy? Click, click, click. Commodities are loaded into your spaceship. You don't see them ever. You go to the other location, you sell off your commodities. You never see those. Star Citizen is a more hands-on experience. You've got to lower the cargo bay doors. You've got to grab the cargo in there and align it on the cargo grid and stack. Play a little bit of cargo Tetris. And then you've got to adjust your power settings and stuff like that. And there's stuff that is still not in the game that, to very much credit, should be in the game. Like the engineering aspect is not in the game. The life support stuff is not in the game. Walking around your spaceship, however, is in the game. Like being able to fully walk around the spaceship, which you cannot do in Elite Dangerous. You can get out and walk around the space stations and on some of the atmospheric planets, but you can't get out of your seat. Like when you get out of your spaceship, it fades to black, and then you come out onto the planet or the space station or in your hangar.
But this game was released in 2015.
Yeah.
Like full released in 2015. And so those things that you talk about, I'm like, okay, I can see why you couldn't necessarily do those things. I am like,
to give more context, when Elite Dangerous launched, you could only fly around in space.
okay.
It was the Horizons expansion that was not there on launch that let you land on planets. And it wasn't until the Odyssey expansion where you could actually get out of your spaceship.
Okay.
So to get to the point, it wasn't like it launched and then everything was there in its time. And there's been plenty of controversy around Elite Dangerous as well that it's not worth getting into. But I look at this as, what is each game trying to do? And Star Citizen is trying to do the most. How they're going about doing it, there is a conversation there. Like the amount of detail in Star Citizen is almost at a ridiculous point. Like there's you saw in the trailer, like there's FPS combat. Like they are rendering the bullets being chambered into the gun one by one. Like those are assets that are projectiles that are going out. Like there's crazy complicated stuff going on. Does it matter? Is another question. Some people argue yes, some people argue no.
Is it and whether it matters or not, like it's cool. Is it cool enough that we're delaying any sort of like further growth? Like I just feel like you could take, you're like, okay, they only have 2 systems and they promised 100. Okay, but they're doing so much with the 2 systems they have.
Yes.
Why couldn't you take 2 systems, boom, move that forward, be like, this is Star Citizen, start playing it, and then we are going to, while we patch stuff that's going on here, we are going to continue to create and make updates that add new systems. Like I feel like it almost feels like they're just going, like I said, it's the carrot on the stick. We're still making more, and it's like, but what am I tangibly getting for this?
Right.
For this.
That's totally fair. And again, to just put more things into perspective, I think it was 2023, the CitizenCon, like their like annual like convention press conference thing of like the big, here's what's going on with Star Citizen. They basically admitted it's getting too big. Like at this rate, the game will never come out. We have to scale it back. Like, and have they delivered on some of those promises? Again, yes and no. They basically said, we're not doing 100 star systems. It will probably never happen. We're bringing it down right now to 5 is our goal for a 1.0 release. We want 5. Pyro is the second star system. It came out end of last year, and it's really cool. And they're like, Nyx, the third system, is almost done. You know, almost done to them could mean anything. So
could mean 10 years.
Yeah, yeah, it could. There's, that's the joke, is like, oh man, I can't wait for my grandkids to play Star Citizen. But like, there has been motions set in place, and again, promises versus delivery is a whole other thing. But they even came out at the end of last year and said, we're not happy with the state of the game, and we know for a fact you are not. We are going to scale back certain, features and stuff like that. Like, we're going to focus on smaller, more refined updates to make sure that the game itself is more fun to play, that there's more reason to play the game, that when you recommend your friend to Star Citizen, it's not a bad experience for them. Because they're not, it's like the same with, like, I say this with any, AAA game or any business thing. It's like, the people at the head of these businesses, they're not stupid. They're not like just like throwing ideas at a dartboard. They're like, they know that if they do like a free fly event where like anyone can play the game for free for a week and, try it out, you can try as many spaceships as you want totally for free, which is a cool thing they do. And you get in there and it's this buggy mess, and like your ship explodes for no reason, and like the elevator kills you and all of this stuff. And it's like, why would I put money into this game? And they're like, what they have said is, they're like, the retention of people who try the game and then buy the game has gone down over the years. And it's like, that's bad. That's very bad. Is that it's at a point where you have people who've been playing this game for so long, and like there's a little bit of copium there, and there's a lot of like rose tinted glasses going on, and it's just like, they know that there's a really fun experience to have once you kind of bulldoze through these bugs. But for like you, who's never played this, and like you just want to play a fun video game, like that's a totally different experience. If it's just like, I paid $45 to fly a spaceship, and then I took off my hanger and the ship exploded and I don't know why. That's not a good experience. That's not fun. Like I was playing the other day and like my ship just exploded from a bug, and I'm like, this isn't fun. I just lost money from that, and I'm never going to get that money back until I play the game more.
I see it. I didn't realize that. Like,
not real world money. Like,
okay. Yeah, I was like, wow.
Like, no. Like,
okay.
Like in-game money. Sorry, I lost credits.
Okay.
There's no gambling. Like that is the thing that they've had to very much, go through, because they want this to be realistic and immersive, and like, death has a consequence, losing your spaceship has a consequence, blah, blah, blah. They're like, if you spend money on our spaceships, you will always have your spaceship. It's never going away. Like they want it to be like, okay, you saved up money, or like they want to have a crafting system so you could craft a spaceship and stuff like that. Not in the game. Like, yeah, if you lose that spaceship, you don't have it insured or something like that, spaceship is gone, bye-bye. But they're like, if you spent money, you spent $1,000 on the spaceship, that is your spaceship forever. We will make whatever in lore universe excuse we need to make sure that's always yours. So like, that's good.
I'm going to tell you my perspective on this whole thing from the point of view of someone who doesn't really play MMOs. I'm going to be honest, because I think that really does affect my engagement with this, because community is a huge aspect of MMOs. And it's not an aspect that I really deal with. What I look at is this. I feel like they need a Squadron 42, and they need it 5 years ago.
Yes.
because what they need is a proof of concept to outsiders. They need a proof of concept to gamers like me who do not play MMOs, who do not go in to buy, to this kind of game. They need something that shows other people outside of their sphere, this is what our concept is. This is the kind of game it is. This is what we play. This is what you do. Get me invested as sort of like a proof of concept, and then go, now, if you liked that, there's a whole ass world for you to join and be part of. And then you can have Star Citizen at that point. Star Citizen can be an alpha forever. It can be constantly being updated. It can be in, like, it is Star Trek Online. It's SWTOR. It's, the Old Republic. It can exist forever. But I would argue that Star Wars The Old Republic does not go anywhere if KOTOR and KOTOR 2 don't exist.
Right.
Like, that's what gets people going. I'm excited about this. I'm excited about this era. I want to live in this. Let me take it to SWTOR. Yeah. And I feel like that is what Star Citizen doesn't have, is if you are not a person who is into MMOs, if you are not a person who wants that immersive experience of something that you might not be totally familiar with and have no ties to. There's no Star Trek, Star Wars, there's no IP related to this. You are selling me just a concept. You are selling me a lot of really cool ideas about what is possible in a video game, but I don't know if every gamer, I don't know if I'm the kind of gamer who wants to just be sold ambitious ideas. And I think I need something tangible that I can be like, okay, this is cool. Like I said, imagine we had a Mass Effect MMO and we got the Mass Effect games, and then they were like, hey, when you're done with these games, go be part of the giant Mass Effect universe. I don't know why we don't have that as I'm saying it, but I'm like, where are the games? Where is the support to this MMO? Especially when you don't have an IP, when you don't have, like, I just feel like, especially for the investment that players have put into it and the amount of money this game has made, I don't understand why we're not marketing this game better. I never even heard of it until you a couple years ago.
Yeah. So I don't think any of what you just said is wrong. I think almost the entirety of the Star Citizen community would go against what you said. Is that almost all of Star Citizen, not all, but like there is a overwhelming majority of people who feel the exact opposite, that Squadron 42 is the problem. Like, we don't want this single player experience. Like, we've had these single player experiences. We just want what games have grown to be in like the more modern era of like the No Man's Skies, the Elite Dangerous, the EVE Onlines. Like, that's what people want. They want this like if you think of like GTA Online is the selling point of GTA, right? Not the story anymore. Like, yep. Call of Duty, if you look back to Call of Duty, like, and you're right, like, you wouldn't have Call of Duty if it wasn't for the original one that had a really engaging story. And like, yes, there was a multiplayer game, but now it's just about the multiplayer. No one plays the campaigns anymore. Like, some people do, but like, that's the whole point. And I think that's where a lot more people have gravitated towards over the years. And I agree. I think that there should be something that is like, and I've said this for a while, is like, there should be isolated experiences. And there kind of are in Star Citizen with something called Arena Commander, which is basically like your multiplayer dogfight, like just load in with 10 other people. There's no persistent universe. It's just open space, shoot each other down and get kills and get points. Like, there is that. There is like a Call of Duty mode where it's just team deathmatch. You're not worrying about how does me leaving a soda can on this space station here affect the servers on another star system, which is kind of like what Star Citizen contends with, that like no other game contends with. but yeah, like there is that, and I'm like, there should be, because they had like a new player experience that's a tutorial that's also connected to the persistent universe. And I'm like, why would you not make this its own contained experience where it's like, this is the tutorial, this is a isolated instance thing that only you are a part of, and it runs perfectly every time instead of trying to inject that into the world. Like, I agree with you, there needs to be these contained, polished aspects of the game that are ready to go, like having something like a salvage tutorial, where it's like you don't have to worry about someone coming in and ramming your ship, or your ship, hitting an asteroid that hasn't spawned in yet, visually, and then you explode. It's like, this is a contained thing so that you can enjoy it. And then when you're ready, you can go out into the open universe and have your kind of glitchy, kind of buggy open experience.
So then and maybe you're right, okay, maybe I am not. I think what you have now is a developer issue. You have an
Yes.
issue where a developer doesn't understand what their game is supposed to be and what their audience
Yes.
wants it to be. Because
100%.
I think that you've nailed it by telling me that, like, you've hammered it into my head. Like, is it supposed to be this Mass Effect style world that you're going around through, and there's this big arching story and this, role-playing experience like that, like an action role-playing experience? Or is it this immersive life simulator in space? And because if it is the latter, which is what it sounds like Star Citizen,
Yep.
like what we have of Star Citizen is the latter, and that is what people are enjoying, that is what people have put $800 million into,
Yes.
then just fucking give them that, and there's no excuse to be two systems in 15 years almost. Like, at which point you're like, okay, I think, and maybe this explains what's going on with the development process in general, is that they set out for what I said. They set out with the idea of, we're going to make this beautiful, expansive world that changes space flight games and sims like that. But we're also going to make this other marketable game that's going to make us the money. And then they went, oh, fuck, we're making a ton of money making this other thing. Shit, but we promised them that, and we already started making it, and we got all these big actors, and we got all this money poured into it, and now they're going, we're juggling two projects that should both be independent projects, and we don't have the manpower as an independent developer to dedicate to both of these projects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess this is the Star Citizen onion will just continue to unravel itself, because the other aspect of this is there's another thing.
Uh-oh.
So when Star Citizen was announced, they said it would be running on CryEngine, which is what Crysis and stuff like Far Cry were running on, and it was really good. And there was some controversy, there were some lawsuits tossed around because they eventually switched to Amazon Lumberyard, which is another engine that's based off of CryEngine. But now they have done so much work on the game and the engine itself that they have now, I'll link it to you later, but they're working on their own game engine now at this point, because what they want to make, and again, whether you think them wanting to do this is good or bad is totally up to interpretation, but what they want to do was not possible in CryEngine or Lumberyard. So they have started their own engine that is based off of Lumberyard called StarEngine. And so they have a whole team, or part of their team is dedicated to developing these engine tools to make sure that the things that they want to do work within the game the way they want them to work. So there are really three things being developed here technically. There's Star Citizen, Squadron 42, and StarEngine, all at the same time.
So I have a hypothetical.
Yeah.
And I wonder if this has been pitched within the community, if this is something they've talked about. Have they considered, like, either maybe not selling the property, but like working with a publisher, like a big publisher, maybe for something like Squadron 42 or something like that, because I feel like this is an incredibly ambitious project for a handful of people to work on together. And like, is it too much? Like, would it be better to
discussed.
Okay, has it?
It's been discussed. I have even said, like, would it, I've had that conversation with people, like, would it be better? I think the consensus is no. I think that one of the biggest selling points of Star Citizen is that this is the George Lucas prequel problem of, this is what happens when you give a creative mind all of the freedom in the world, as much as possible, at least, right? And it gets out of proportion and out of scale way too fast. But there's an appreciation for that down the line of, like, we wouldn't have gotten like, if, let's say they sold to, let's say they sold to Microsoft, doesn't matter who they sell, let's just use Microsoft. Microsoft would have at some point said, here's the cap, here's what has to be done, here's the delivery date. Stop worrying about bullets being rendered inside of the guns and being projectile fired. Doesn't matter. Stop worrying about, locational damage on spaceships. If you shoot a bullet in here, it should damage this very specific thing instead of just having an HP drain. Like, yes, you would have a complete game probably by now, if not earlier. But I think most of the people who play Star Citizen would agree it's not the game. It wouldn't be the game they signed up for. If they wanted a publisher to make their game, they can buy Elite Dangerous. That's the point, I think, for a lot of people in the community that stand by Star Citizen and want it, is it's like, we have that. It's Elite Dangerous. We have that. It's X4. We have that. It's EVE Online. This is the ultimate let them cook situation.
It just feels pretentious. It feels like I'm not going to call it Scam Citizen. At this point, I'm going to call it Hipstar Citizen. Like, because it feels very hipster. It's like, well, you wouldn't understand. This is an auteur project. You compare like to George Lucas. Well, we all agree that the problem with the prequels is that there was no one there telling George no and telling him when to make.
And that's Chris Roberts and George Lucas have the same issues of, like, this ever expanding idea of creativity with no limits and not really taking the scope into consideration of, like, you've taken it too far. Both creators have that same problem. Chris Roberts has
Tell me about Chris Roberts.
Chris Roberts, the founder of CIG, is a well-renowned video game developer. He worked on the Wing Commander series. He worked on the Freelancer series. These are like some of the foundational games in the space sim genre. Like Wing Commander, you wouldn't have X-Wing versus TIE Fighter if it weren't for Wing Commander. You wouldn't have things like X4, EVE Online, Stellaris if it weren't for Freelancer. Like, he is a pioneer in the genre. And he also got into films and stuff like that, and it didn't go super well for him. The controversy of Freelancer didn't go super well in his favor, again, because of his, like, ambitious nature. But the games he has made were wildly influential to just video games as a whole. Like, he has always pushed the boundaries. Like, Wing Commander pushed the boundaries of what games could be back in the day. Freelancer did the exact same thing. It pushed the boundaries of what a video game could be when it came out. Star Citizen is doing the exact same thing as those games. There have been multiple stories of people who worked at CIG that said he is not a good manager. He just, he is like, I have this, I watched this show and I watched this movie or I read this book and this was so cool. We need to put it in the game because it'll be so much fun to do. And they're just like, can we finish what we were working on?
Yeah, it's like the bullet rendering thing that you talk about. Like, that is an excellent, like, exercise in what you can do with video game technology. But especially if, like, part of me goes, especially if the gun itself, you don't see this happening, but we're working on these internal things. Are we just, is it masturbatory at that point? Are we just showing what is capable? Like, that's cool, but does it add anything? Oh, you're invisible. Okay, there you are. But is it adding anything really functionally to the experience? Or is it just look at how cool it is? Like, again, it's where this hipster thing comes in. Like, you wouldn't understand. You haven't been here. You don't know how far it's come. You don't know they're doing all these amazing things that no one else is doing. And it's like, but is it stuff that enhances? Is it stuff that, like, makes it any better?
I agree and disagree with you, because I think yes, I think there's a level of absurdity that you can 100% get to when it comes to this stuff. But I also look, because like you have brought up multiple times of like World of Warcraft and SWTOR, and it's like, yeah, like the online community aspect of those games is very similar to what Star Citizen wants in those facets, but that's where the similarities stop with those games. I would look at this more of, is there, Mario Kart is a great game. I think most people would agree that Mario Kart is a great game. Does that not mean we don't have room for Gran Turismo and Forza? Like, where you can make a good game without having to worry about the, the specific traction and suspension wear on a car. You can just have the car drive and it's super fun. But there is like an appeal to people who want that more detailed experience. It's like you can make a
Yeah.
game like Quake or Doom or Call of Duty. You can also make Escape from Tarkov. You can make Ready or Not. Like, there is
Don't get me
room.
started on that game.
Ready or Not?
I have issues with that game. I don't, I don't like how realistic it is.
Mhm.
I think part of this comes from being an American who is too traumatized by gun violence. I
Mhm.
think that game reaches a spot where I start to feel concerned about how people interact with this game when everything is so real, when everything is so, when everything, especially in terms of gun violence, everything is so real. I feel like we are now starting to push toward the things that people were warning about, like Grand Theft Auto 30 years ago. I feel like they become a lot harder, especially when we're dealing with children whose minds aren't developed and they're seeing something that is so real. And so much of that game revolves around, like, you're a cop. I just saw a fucking DLC or something being pushed for that game that's like breaking and entering or something. And like, we're talking about like whether you're either committing crimes or like shooting criminals. It feels tricky. I think
Okay.
sorry.
We could do a whole episode on that.
Yeah, let's get off that train.
I'm going to say this. I'm going to say
your
this.
part.
Ready or Not is one of my favorite video games ever made. Because everything you just said, I think when I say this, do you know who developed that game?
Mm-mm.
It was not Americans.
Yeah. Well,
the game is 100% a commentary on police brutality.
I get that, but much like, to bring it back to George Lucas, we are in a delicate time when people's media literacy is at such a low rate.
Yes.
That my danger is in the reality, not in the conception. Like, idealistically, it is cool that we have a commentary on police brutality like that, but functionally, is the average consumer experiencing it, going into it with that understanding, or are they simply reveling in and glorifying what should be satire?
To end off this discussion, because I think this is another good discussion episode potentially. There are missions in Ready or Not that very much are meant to like invoke like, what am I doing? And the way the systems of the game works, like especially the single player campaign, is it wants you to do what, like, it has that BioShock moment of like, yeah, I got the cool gun, I'm gonna go shoot everyone, and then you're just like, you just failed miserably because you did what we expected you to do. Like, you failed miserably. Like, people, like, the campaign is based on like, you went in, you shot a bunch of people quit their jobs. Like like you will get a failing grade if you go in and shoot people. Like, you will not unlock the next thing until you do it the right way.
Well,
Yes, it's a video, there's a video game element to that where you can get around that, blah blah blah.
maybe I need to interact more with that game to form
I'll
a
send
better
you a
opinion.
video. I'll send you
Yeah.
a video that's really, that breaks down, not so much like, it breaks down the mechanics and the lore of it and why it's like, it talks about propaganda. What is propaganda? What isn't propaganda? It's hard to not make propaganda when you involve police forces, but it's like, it's a very good video, very good like dissertation on it. I love
Okay.
that game.
About
Anyways,
Star Citizen, I
yeah,
will say this. I feel like from everything you've described and the way that you've talked about this game, it very much feels like, in my opinion, the Star Citizen fan base needs to get used to the fact that their game is niche and that their
yeah,
game is never going to be a mass sensation.
yes,
And I think the developers need to stop. They need to figure out what they're doing and actually just do it. Because again, like I can see where this Chris Roberts being this auteur with this like incredible mind, but again, like Kojima puts out games. If you want to
yeah,
talk about auteurs, like Kojima puts out products, and I
yeah.
use him because he's the ultimate like video game auteur. And I'm like, I just want whatever Star Citizen wants to do, they need to do something, because it feels like right now they're at a point where they're really not doing much. It's all like tiny incremental things, and it's
Yes.
cool, and it feels really cool to be like, well, I spent not saying to you, I spent $500 on Star Citizen, and I got all this cool stuff, and it's like, and I can do all of these cool things, and that's like, that's great that you can do all that. I can go back and have a whole experience playing the Mass Effect Legendary Edition,
Mhm.
and it's not going to be as buggy, and I know that I'm not having to spend $1,000 to feel like I'm getting the experience of the game.
Mhm. So, to go with a couple of those points, they have, like I said, they have addressed that. And again, this goes back to the transparency of CIG's development. That is, in my opinion, even though it can be frustrating at times, it is better than anywhere else. I cannot think of a single. I can think of two examples of of a studio saying, we screwed up, we want to change things, and that's id Software and Nintendo. And that was for the Doom reboot and Metroid Prime 4. Where, but here's where I think the difference lies, is that we had 5 pieces of concept art for Doom 4, and we had a splash panel for Metroid Prime 4. And they said, we're not happy with it. We want to start over and redo it. And Doom was so much better for it. Doom 2016 is, one of the best shooters ever made. And then we'll see with Metroid Prime 4. We don't know. When a game is in active development and you're seeing the progress of what they're doing, and then you have people come up on stage and, obviously in a very PR friendly way, they're not like, we're so sorry guys, we screwed it up. It's like, hey, they will come on stage, they will come on their, video content and say, we're not happy. And we know that you guys aren't happy about these things. We want to change this. We're scaling this thing back. We're going to focus more on this. We want this to happen. They're like, we're pulling people off of Squadron 42 to focus more on Star Citizen at this point. And having that level of transparency and like the honesty to an extent. You obviously have to keep certain things under wrap. Like, people will get so caught up in like, well, they didn't tell us about this. Like, they can't have every single tweak that they've made in the game public, right? Um, but like, having that, I think, is something that is very important, I think, for game development moving forward. Because I've said this: if Squadron 42 comes out in 2026 and it's good, and it's not super buggy. It's a really engaging story. It's unlike anything else you've done. Um, and then in, let's say in 2027 they deliver Star Citizen 1.0, and it's a really good experience. Maybe it's a little buggy, but maybe it's still like unlike anything else. In the same way that Dark Souls and Baldur's Gate changed how people look and make up video games, Star Citizen has the potential to do that too. There will be more people that are like, yes, video game to get what you want, to not have loading screens in Starfield, you need to spend way more time on it. To not have, you know, the open world issues of something like Watch Dogs. Yeah, you need to do this. There's a reason that Red Dead Redemption took so long to make. Um, and I think that if they do it right, they have the opportunity to change how video games are made and their release schedules and what happens and more community focused development cycles. If they fail, which is an equally as possible situation here, we will know. I'm more scared of Star Citizen failing than succeeding, because if they fail, it is the same reason. It's the same thing as people going to the movie theater and only buying MCU tickets and not buying, these things. It's like every time a low budget, mid budget indie film fails in the box office, it is another reason for these giant corporations to say, see, you don't go watch these things. Why would we bother with anything but Marvel movies now? If Star Citizen fails, it gives publishers every possible reason to say, yeah, this is why we should increase our or decrease our release schedules. Like we have to, we need more games out more, faster. We don't, having these grand ideas and visions just isn't sustainable.
Well,
Like I'm
what
more scared of this game failing.
but what is the purpose of Star Citizen? And that is my problem. And this is not a question you can necessarily answer.
Sure.
This is a question the developers have to answer. What is the point? Are you focused on creating your product that people will enjoy that is great? Or are you wanting to produce something that the rest of the gaming world sees and elevates their game to match? Are you trying to innovate and inspire, or are you trying to focus on, like, who's benefiting? Is it the developers who are showing what they can do, or is it the consumers who are getting this game that is this polished great experience that they love and that they want? Like, because I feel like we're at odds with each other on that, because you could easily put out a 7 or 8 out of 10 game that focuses its primary stuff on these one-of-a-kind mechanics, these things that they do that nobody else does. And even if your game underperforms a little, it will inspire the industry and it will show the consumer these are the things you need to be demanding of your AAA studios. And it could get the developers of this game jobs at these other places, could get them money to create other projects. Or are we focused on creating, Star Citizen to be this masterpiece of art, this display of what video games can be, and this community, this game that you play? Like, because I feel like that's where I'm at. I'm like, are you creating a video game that we're playing, or are you showing me what everybody else isn't doing? Because when it comes to all of this over promising, like, I would love to have a transparent employee who tells me everything he's doing every day, and all the reasons why he's 10 years behind on actually finishing the projects that I have for him. Because that's where I'm looking at it as a consumer, as a manager, is I'm looking at it and I'm going, that's great. I love that they're so transparent. I love that they tell you what they're doing. But are they getting anything done? Like, that's the problem.
So there's two things for me. Is I look at Star Citizen as I always bring it up when talking about this stuff. It's like, this is the game that people said they wanted, but aren't willing to wait for it. And like, yes, decisions could have been made better to make sure that this game comes out in a more reasonable amount of time. That is undisputable, right? But I always look at this as the Titanfall effect of, even if this, when someone gives you the thing you want And Titanfall is an incredibly polished game. It's amazing, awesome. It's what everyone was asking for when it came out, and it was abandoned because people just wanted to go play Call of Duty instead. So like this is definitely a matter of like gamers don't know what they want half the time, and when they're getting what they want, they're still throwing a temper tantrum. The other thing that for me has kept me, and I know a lot of people who like Star Citizen and continue to watch the development of Star Citizen, is there is this weird effect that Star Citizen has that once you kind of sink your teeth into it, when you go and play other games, even if they're more polished, even if they have a better narrative, even if they're a better money proposition, you will be playing it, and there will be something about that game that it doesn't have that Star Citizen does.
Mhm.
And you're like, I'm going back to Star Citizen.
And I feel like Star Citizen, what I've taken away from this is that the community aspect of Star Citizen is being there, watching the development, being there, playing this game, being part of the development. And the people who sink thousands of dollars into this game know that they are doing two things. They're enhancing their enjoyment of the game, and they are part of the investment of developing this game. And that is really cool. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a fun game. Not that it isn't, is or isn't.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that it is a game that it might never exist. This feels like the world's biggest passion project, like the world's most expensive, like, science fair project. It's like, it's cool. And it's cool that you get to be part of that and you get to see what they're doing. But I'm like, again, is this just a diorama? Is this something that we're doing inside this, like, oh, it's really cool that you can do this in Star Citizen, but nobody else is doing that stuff? And it, like, good for Star Citizen?
Yeah.
Like,
well, there's so many facets to this game that it's like it just continually falls into the trap of like no one else is doing anything like this. Like even if we look at content creators around like Star Citizen, there's like negative content creators around Star Citizen that just like they like to dog on it, and I don't want to call them grifters because like most of the time they bring up reasonable points. I think there's some people that like get wrapped up in the negativity very easily. Fine, sure, have fun. But like there's people who are a little bit more neutral and will certainly express frustrations with the game because there's plenty of frustrations to be had. But there's this one content creator called Morphologist, and he is an architect. And he has a series called An Architect Reviews, and he reviews the individual spaceships, both exterior and interior. And when he gets down to the nitty gritty and like the design philosophy of these things, and you're just like, there's a point where it's just like, if I look at something like Star Wars Outlaws and I look at the Trailblazer and I'm like, this is a cool ship and there's so much detail in this ship. This is so awesome. I love the Trailblazer. Star Citizen has that 200 times over. And he has a series, he does other content as well, but his main draw is An Architect Reviews this ship. And each video is like 30 to 40 minutes long. And it's like, what other game has this level of detail, this level of like immersion, where you could make content based off of one small aspect of the game? Where it's like, we review games as a whole. Like there are people who do entire reviews on just the spaceship, and there's so much to talk about because it's not just a box that shoots guns, which is like what a lot of games are. Like if you look at like most first-person shooters, it's a line that shoots bullets and then damages another player's health. It's very simple, and Star Citizen is trying to do something different than that. And again, I think this goes back to, where are we going in the industry? Is this the direction we want to head? For some people, yes. For some people, no.
and you know what? I'm gonna change my tune a little bit. Like, it's gonna sound like I'm changing my tune. I actually think this game is less of a scam than free-to-play games. Like, we'll use Marvel Rivals as an example. I actually think Marvel Rivals is more of a scam than this is, in the sense that because there is a cost entry, because there's a barrier to entry, we are already asking for a commitment up front, as opposed to a free-to-play game that is hooking you with this game is free to play. But all of the, like I said, you sign up for Star Citizen, I feel like most people who are going into this game, because this isn't a marketed game, there's not people everywhere, there's not like ads everywhere telling you to play Star Citizen like there are Marvel Rivals. Half my TikTok For You page is people promoting the game, like not even just creators. But when you enter into Star Citizen, you had to pay to be there. So that's already taking away that. We're not hooking you with, it's free to play. And that's a huge thing, because when you start playing Marvel Rivals, they give you currency and they throw so much at you that entices you to spend real money on in-game purchases. And there are so many skins, and they throw out, like just in the last like 6 weeks of Marvel Rivals, I think there were 8 to 10 released skins. It was ridiculous. It was so many. And then they add FOMO and things like that. Like, I don't know, is FOMO a thing within Star Citizen? Like, do ships come in and then go away after a certain point? Okay.
Yes. So
I don't love that, but that's a marketing thing.
So here's the thing. Okay. It's so complicated. So here's one thing I think Star Citizen does really good. When you boot up the game, you enter in the universe, there is nowhere, no way, no how in the game itself that will say, spend money, get this. New paint jobs for your Polaris available now on robertspaceindustries.com. Nothing like that. There is no in-game monetization while playing the game. Like, you do not, like, there is no way to even get from the game to the website to buy something.
Mm-hmm.
You have to purposefully go to robertspaceindustries.com, go to the pledging area, all of this stuff. Like, to spend money on Star Citizen, you have to do it very deliberately. Which for other games, like you said, like Marvel Rivals, like Fortnite, it is in your face all the time. For NBA 2K, they are trying to get you to buy all those coins and stuff to get new players and stuff like that. It is nonstop. It is not there in Star Citizen. Despite a game that has, ships that cost, more than $1,000, they do not ask you to spend $1,000 on that ship, because that ship is available to purchase with in-game credits. There is, to be fair, they have I believe it's a 3-month window when a ship releases that it can only be purchased for real world money, and then it comes into the game for in-game currency. Like, they're like, hey, you paid money, you get an exclusive, like, get to fly around it, stuff like that. But they do have like limited, like, we sold out. You didn't sell out. It's a digital fucking polygon. You didn't sell out of shit. But yeah, there are ships that like go on sale, like, and there'll be like points in the year where it'll be like, hey, everything's available again. Like, we're and part of it is we don't want everyone flying around in capital ships. We're only going to sell 50 capital ships during this event, something like that.
Right. Which, yeah, I mean, that's just like marketing.
It's a marketing thing.
I don't love it, but
it's not great. But it's also, no other game is doing not only like what the game is doing, but also having the same monetization thing. So it's very muddy in so many places, because it's like, in some ways, it's like, this is the best monetization system compared to so many other games, but also it's not good in other ways.
I just feel like looking at the website, looking at the material that they do have that promotes the game, where it feels like a scam is that I do not feel like they are honest about what the game is. I feel like there is dishonesty in the representation. Like, they are selling it like it is this super polished, like, Mass Effect style MMO game. And like, it feels like
the trailers are insane.
It feels like what they should be saying is, what it is. This is an artistic experience. This is a game that is going to push the limits of what video games can and should do. We're going to be the company that puts each individual bullet into the chamber of the gun. Push the artistic aspect of the game and sell what it is. Like, if you start playing Star Citizen, you're not just playing a game, you are joining a community. Every dollar that you spend goes into the production of this game and the support of our team that develop it. We are going, like, this game may never truly be done. Star Citizen will always be evolving. It will always be growing. That's awesome. Be honest and tell me that's what it is. Because when I look at it, I don't feel like any of that stuff, which sounds really cool. It's, this is an investment. You're part of this journey. That's awesome. But it feels like that's not what they're selling.
I think one of the issues is like what you're saying is true. And I believe the early days of Star Citizen was exactly that. It was like, this is like an ever developing situation. There is no game like this. Like the space sim aspect of this, the detail of it, nothing has come close. That was like, if you look at the GDC like teaser announcement, it was like, it's corny as hell. It's like, we're not a console game. Like, it's like, no game can touch Star Citizen. And it's like, yeah, and it's like it didn't go well, but when they kind of had this more narrative focus to what they were selling and kind of these like embellished versions of what actually is happening, because like and the same with any trailer, like there's going to be something you see that's going to be way cooler than the gameplay actually is. And it's one of those things, like there are moments of Star Citizen that, like whether it was playing by myself or play, like I distinctly remember playing with Cal, and we were just doing a cargo run, and like a space station was like overrun with pirates, and it was like I was like, oh my god, get in the turret. And he gets in the turret, and we're like, we have hundreds of thousands of dollars or credits on our ship. We're like, we cannot lose this. And so it's this huge battle between us and 4 other ships, and it's like this was supposed to be a typical cargo run. And I'm like yeah, like
this sounds like
this is cool.
You have pitched me like 5 or 6 different games that all sound really cool. And they're within one experience, which is awesome. But like, I don't know. I'm just like, the word I would use to describe this game is ambitious. And I feel like that ambition could be arguably too great.
You are 10,000% right.
Like, again, I would love, like, give me a co-op game. What you just told me about your experience with Cal, that would be amazing. Just give me a co-op game where you're in, like, the ship from Star Wars Outlaws, and there's 2 of you, and you're doing different jobs on the ship, and you're doing missions, and sometimes they go right. Like, right there, you just sold me, like, a cool co-op experience that doesn't even need to be, like, an MMO. And I'm like, there are a lot of really cool concepts within this game.
And to your point is that has been happening. I was joking with a friend, is like X4, which is, I would say it's a single player game, but it is the closest game to Star Citizen out there. Because at this point, there's been a half a dozen Star Citizen wannabe clones that don't even come close. X4 is like, it is the 4th in the X series, so it's an established franchise, but it is as close to Star Citizen as you can get as a single player experience, and it is complete, fully fleshed out, and all of that stuff. We always joke, because like anytime Star Citizen is in the headlines, like, oh, they passed $800 million, X4 goes on sale, like every time. But you also have a couple other things happening, like the game, if you've seen Jump Ship, which is very much Star Citizen crossed with Sea of Thieves, but on a more scaled back idea, where it is like this whole like piracy in space thing, and you've got to put out the fires on the ship, and you've got to do this. It's very Sea of Thieves in space, but it has a lot of like elements you'll see in something like Star Citizen, and that game looks really, really good, and it's coming out soon. But this also goes back to that experience sounds awesome, and then it's that same effect I talked about is like, this is gonna be so cool for, like, 3 months, and then I'm gonna be like, "Yeah, but I can't do this." And Star Citizen lets me do that. And that's the really hard part is it's just like, there are so many games out there. Mass Effect and Starfield will just be better narrative experiences. Like, I think they will be better narrative experiences than Squadron 42 will be, because that was their focus. I think that, Elite Dangerous has a better experience when it comes to just flying around. Like, you can just explore Elite Dangerous and just be there. Like, a trip around the galaxy takes literal real time months to do. Um, and like, that's an experience in itself. And then there's other games like Sea of Thieves. Obviously, it's on the space that handles piracy and PvP interactions way better than Star Citizen has ever dreamed of. But all of these games can't be combined into one. And that's where Star Citizen, I think, fits in this weird puzzle piece of like, I want all of these awesome things to be in one experience. Like, and there's so many facets.
Oh, you disappeared, Chase. Hang on. There you are.
Frontier Developments was upset that I was talking about Star Citizen over Elite Dangerous. But no, that's the thing is it's like I try to be as open-minded on this stuff as possible because like for me, I will go in phases of Star Citizen where I'm like, okay, just the state of the game is just it's not satisfying with what it's doing right now. Like this patch broke so much stuff and it fixed all this stuff that I don't care about. I don't want to play Star Citizen right now. Like the infamous 3.18 patch, like will go down in history of like the game was literally unplayable at this time.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How much of Star Citizen's how prevalent has what the fuck is it? Squadron 42. How prevalent has Squadron 42 been since the beginning of Star Citizen's like inception? Has it been there since the very start?
Yes. Since like the tail end of the Kickstarter, it was I may be messing up some of the timeline here. It may not have had the full name, but like one of the stretch goals was a single player campaign. So
because I wonder if like, oh, you disappeared again, which is good for me because that means I can say, haha, I'm saying what I'm saying. But as we wait for you to inevitably pop back up, there you are. My thing is, I feel like that's the I feel like, love it or hate it, Squadron 42 is a big problem for this game and for this company because it's not going to be the same experience at all as Star Citizen.
Right.
And so what I'm wondering is, I think they need to pivot and decide what they're doing and what they're focusing on. Because here's the thing, you could have very easily, at any point in the last 14 years, been like, listen, I know the single player campaign was a big part of our Kickstarter and stuff, but look at what this game has grown into. We want to prioritize this, and we know you guys were excited about this, but we're just not going to get to it, or not going to get to it right now. And maybe one day they license Squadron 42 to another publisher and they put it out, because I feel like it's one or the other. Either you're going to be developing Star Citizen, or you're going to, like, a game like with what Squadron 42 looks like, that isn't possible if you're not putting the right manpower and the right money into that.
So you are 100% right, and CIG agrees. And that's the thing is, about 2 years ago, there was, again, as much as I kind of follow the development of Star Citizen, there's so much to it that I don't know everything. There was a very big shift in like management, like whether it was executive management or middle management, whatever it may be. There is a huge shift, like, and it was like news within the Star Citizen community of like, people are getting shifted around, people are leaving and more people are coming in and stuff like that. And there's lots of nuance to this as well, but there was basically a turning point in about 2023 of like, we have to pivot to making this game a video game. And that's going to be through compromise. That's going to be through not worrying about this. That's going to be saying, hey, our initial goal was to have every ship we promised, from day one to be in, Star Citizen 1.0. That's no longer happening. 100 star systems. That's no longer happening. All of these career paths and all of these things, that's no longer happening. What they have said is that when we get to the 1.0 state, which they have a map of what 1.0 will now look like. That's like this thing that a lot of people in the Star Citizen community are holding them to, of like, you said, this is it, that we're not going to have to worry about you trying to introduce this and that. And, oh, we found this really cool new thing. No. 1.0 is going to be this. And they have said 1.0 is not the end of Star Citizen. There will probably be a Star Citizen 2.0, and I think that is the best thing that has happened to Star Citizen since its inception, or since like the initial first few releases of Squadron 42 happened, like from 2016 to 2018 and all that.
What's
I
your
think
what's your cutoff date? At what point do you tell yourself they're just never gonna do what like this?
I don't have one, because my video game life, my media consumption life is not tied to Star Citizen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if Star Citizen comes out in 2050 when I'm 70 years old, cool. I hope I have the, reflexes to have that. But that also comes back to what I said, way before. I've gotten my money's worth. Like,
Yeah.
even before the game came out, I feel like I've gotten my money's worth. Like, the amount of enjoyment and fun I've had with Star Citizen, playing with different orgs, playing with friends, teaching people to play, it has been a blast. And like I said, if they came out tomorrow and said it's no longer happening, we're taking it offline, I would be sad, I would be disappointed, but I would be like, I got my money's worth. I sunk hundreds of hours into a game that wasn't finished yet. Like, I can't say that for a lot of video games. And like, I had a good time in that. Like, yes, there were frustrating moments. There was times I'm like, I don't want to play this until it's in a better state. Like, when 3.18, the alpha 3.18 came out, I didn't play Star Citizen for over a year because I was like, it's just not fun. The new 4.1 patch has been really good. I really like it. The new 4.0 code base works way better than the 3.0 code base. It's got some funky issues with it. Like, there's still some jankiness to it. It's not perfect. It's nowhere near perfect, but like you said, I don't have a cutoff date. Like, I'm not sitting in my chair, like, waiting for Squadron 42. Like, my life won't be complete until Squadron 42 is in my hands. Like, I'm going to play Squadron 42 when it came out. I paid for it. I'm not sitting here. We were supposed to get engineering gameplay with the release of 4.0. And one of the other things that I understand that it's frustrating for some people, but I appreciate is like, they're not happy with how engineering works. So they're not releasing it. And it's like, do you want these features? Because like, people complain, like, not just with Star Citizen, with any game, is it's like, oh, look at Cyberpunk. What do you want? Like, it took if we look at something like Cyberpunk, that again is not at the same scale as something like Star Citizen is. That game took 11 years of development. And even at 11 years, when it was released, it wasn't ready. And it took another 2 to 3 years to get that game into the state it's in. Now, I personally don't like the game. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's a bad video game. I just don't like vibe with it.
Mm.
But we're talking about a similar amount of time of development for a game that is not that it's a simple game, but it's nowhere near as complex as Star Citizen is. Like, if I could, go back to 2013 me and be like, listen to what they're telling you that they're making. Do you honestly think it's going to be done in 3 years? Think about that. And it's like CIG should have never put those expectations in our brains. And they've suffered the consequences for that. They have lost money because of it. You know, there's people that don't spend money on the game anymore that probably would, and they're feeling those consequences. They wouldn't be making the shifts in the game they are making today if it weren't for community feedback, if it weren't for people trying the game and not buying the game afterwards. Like, the reason they're doing the things they're doing is entirely because people aren't happy and that they have to change something. And here's the thing, they're changing. And I have to give credit where credit's due. I can be frustrated with them all day long. I can be frustrated of the decisions to, not fix certain ships. They said today they fixed a ship that, like, I love, that has been in dire need of a rework. They fixed it this morning. Like, I don't like at some point, credit where credit's due. I can be frustrated with how they handle things all day long, but I can also look at, there is real progress being made. There is real developments that are happening. There is more to explore in this game than there ever has been. And I can, not not to say I'm like glazing it or like, having all this copium, but I can look at it from like an outside perspective and like with the knowledge that I have and be like, I'm okay with this. I'm okay with what they're doing. I can be frustrated with it. I can be annoyed, and like I can be like, my ship will blow up randomly in Star Citizen like it did the other day. I'm like, Alt F4, I'm done for a while.
What I would ask, because this is kind of where I'm getting from, what I'm getting from this. If I were a new player, if I were pitching this game to a new player, I think you need to accept it for what it is.
Yes.
And I would not buy into, whether you want to admit it or not, as a player who's been watching the development and stuff, I would tell people, go into this game with what we've talked about, with what you've pitched. Go into it expecting that that is the game. And do not go into it thinking, well, one day we're going to get this, one day we're going to get that. The developers are talking about, because the pace at which they're working is not a pace where you're going to be disappointed if you go into it waiting for the next thing that you were told is coming. I think if what you have described sounds fun to you, you want to be in that MMO experience, you want to have these ships that you can live in and move around in, you want to have that life sim and that flight sim, you want to be part of that community, if potentially unlocking these new ships and stuff, if that all sounds interesting to you, then you're going to enjoy this game. And getting into this game, your barrier of entry is that $45 entry, which is kind of just the price of buying a game. Like, that's not a bad price for a game.
Yeah.
But go into it without expecting, Squadron 42 kind of stuff from everything. Or even expecting, in all honesty, that Squadron 42 is coming anytime soon. If it happens, that's awesome. Let it be its own thing. But with this, I feel like you have to tailor your expectations and really understand that what you've got right now is what you're getting for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, if I were to pitch the game, I would start with, this game is, I know it's a bad pitch, this game is not for everyone. Even in a totally polished and perfect state, this game will not be for everyone. Not everyone is going to care about that level of detail in their video games. Some people just want, they want that really simple experience. And that is 100% okay. In the same vein that someone who finds another style of game too simple, that's fine. But where I would say is, do you want a game that has an unparalleled and unprecedented level of immersion? Like, is your dream to live on a spaceship and do spaceship things? Like, if you watched Star Wars, you watched Babylon 5, Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, and the idea of living on a spaceship and tinkering with that spaceship and doing all sorts of spaceship things and going to alien worlds and very weird space stations and going into weird elements of space where pirates are aplenty, Um, and having a game, we haven't even touched on the lore of Star Citizen, which is also insane. Like the amount of lore in this game is wild. Um, but if you want all of that in a game, this is the game for you. You have to understand that to get all of that into one package is not an easy endeavor, and it is also not being handled by the the people who can do that in a timely manner, and that the team working on it is going to take their time, and they're going to make sure that it is what they want it to be, and they're going to work with the community on that, and they're going to make mistakes along the way. Like there are things that they have in the game that people have abandoned the game because they didn't like a change. Okay, fine. It's just a game that, like, if if the name Star Citizen itself, like living in space, is the idea of fun to you, and you want that to be as immersive as possible, this is the game. This is it. Like, this is a game that is doing its best job to never leave you wanting. The only thing you will want is for the game itself to just be a better experience. It has everything you could possibly want to do in a game. You just want those things to be smoother. It's never gonna the goal is to never leave you saying like, oh, but I wish I could do this. It's like you can. It just sometimes doesn't work. It's like the whole point of Star Citizen. But
I
yeah,
I feel like awareness is very important to consumers, to new players. I do think you need to know what you're getting into before you make the decision on whether or not this is a game you want to play.
yeah,
I don't think that I think you need to learn that from the community and from people who actually play the game, because the developers do not do a good job of giving you that that understanding of that experience in a way that is like accessible to new players and to
right.
people who aren't playing the game already. I think that you did a great job. I was going to ask you for an elevator pitch, and I feel like that was a really good one. Like, understanding what it is, if this sounds interesting to you, even, and I think of someone like Xerxes who wanted so much from Starfield. If this idea sounds interesting to you, $45 is not the highest that you're going to pay for a video game. And I think that the way, Chase has made it out to sound here, you can have an experience that will easily be worth what you paid to enter into the game.
Yeah.
If it sounds interesting to you,
I have a group of friends that I play with, and like there's one like married couple, and they play video games together. And like she's not like a stranger to video games, but like she's very much like does not care about like being the best at a video game and stuff like that. She's very much for, playing video games for a chill experience. And they play Star Citizen, and she gets very frustrated with the bugs, rightfully so, but she will tell you, more than anyone, it's just like there's nothing like this game. It's just when you say like, oh, like there's nothing like the feeling of it's like, yeah, you can say that like in a hyperbole, but like genuinely speaking, like objectively, there's nothing like Star Citizen. And that is what keeps people coming back to it. And that's what keeps the money coming in, is that I think for a lot of people, like what a lot of people have shown over the years is that one of the best ways as like just a regular person to play Star Citizen is to buy a starter package, play it. When you get frustrated with it, stop playing. There are tens of thousands of video games to play out there. When you get the itch to play Star Citizen again, jump back in, because it's going to be different and it's going to be better every single time. And so if you take that kind of like even pace to the game, you'll have a better experience overall. If you like genuinely love it like I do, like yeah, just play it and like take, everyone takes small breaks from Star Citizen here and there. But like I think my most recent break was the longest, just because like my throttle broke. And that's like another thing we haven't gotten into, is like the people who like spend tens of thousands of dollars not on spaceships but on their flight sim setups, like all the buttons, so they don't have to press anything on their keyboard. It's just all there. Um, like you can play Star Citizen with the mouse and keyboard. You can play it with a controller, but I'm like absolutely throttle, joystick, button panels. I have it all. I have a tablet that is like a touch screen so I can, navigate stuff. I have it fully set up. And that is like another thing that adds to the immersion. You don't have to do that. But it's available, which is cool. And yeah, it's just one of those things of you genuinely don't get any experience like it. And that's what I really think is the driving force of Star Citizen. And if they can maintain, the issue will be I'll say this, when Starfield was coming out, the Star Citizen community got really nervous because it was like, what if this is the game where Star Citizen falls behind, where it's no longer the visual powerhouse, it's no longer the game where you know you can do anything you want. What if something else comes along? And this is not to slam Starfield because I love Starfield, but it was not that.
I
It
don't.
was I love Starfield. I think it's a great video game. It is not a replacement for Starfield. It's not a replacement for Mass Effect. It's not a replacement for Elite Dangerous. It is its own thing. And that's fine. And there was like a gasp of relief, I think, from like the Star Citizen community of like when the reception of Starfield, or at least the realization of Starfield wasn't what people were thinking it was going to be. Because even with that, even with something like Jump Ship that's coming out, we know, maybe that game will be really great, but like you have games like Everspace as well that are really good, like Starship Simulator looter shooters. It's still not Star Citizen. And that's the thing, that until Star Citizen falls behind in video games in that way, I think it will continue to make money because people will continue to want to play it. They will continue to make super cool ships. They've announced cool ships even this year that people are excited for.
I
So
think it really starts to, we're in a place where video games have evolved so far that I would argue in this is semantics at its core. Squadron 42 is a video game. Star Citizen is an experience.
I think that
It's an immersive experience more than it is like what I think we need to start really reevaluating kind of video game terminology and like what is a video game, because like what is the gamified aspect of it? I mean, I guess it's like fetch quests and stuff.
sure,
You
like
know,
it's bring box from point A to point B.
I
Like
feel like
that's video game.
I feel like that's the video game part, but you're experiencing the game. To make a comparison, I've been playing South of Midnight. I'm about halfway done with the game.
Mhm.
I compare South of Midnight more to a game like Sea of Solitude or What Remains of Edith Finch than I would to an action adventure platformer like they pitch it as. In the sense that it uses platforming and combat well mechanically within the game, but that is a narrative experience. You
Sure.
are going through not just experiencing the story of your character, but the experiences of other people, and you're getting like narratives given to you and parables essentially that you process through how those relate to the main character and their struggles and your own. But like genre wise, it's being pitched as this action adventure platformer, and I'm like, those are not the core of that game, in the same way that Star Citizen is not a Mass Effect style looter shooter game. And I think that's where, again, I think the marketing just fails this game completely.
I don't think it's even Star Citizen's fault. I think it's just that as video games progress and get more complicated and, more things become possible because of just developments and stuff like that, that we've seen like the blurring of lines in so many aspects. Like you look at something like Final Fantasy 16, like that's a JRPG, but it's also an action hack and slash, but it's also like, just a more narrative, cinematic experience. And there's like lots of little things that change exactly what it is. Like Doom Eternal is, a shooter, but it's also like an arena shooter, but it's also like a platformer. And it's like, video games are becoming more and more complex, and I think that's a good thing. I think the downside is it may become harder overall to find a game that really resonates with you because there's so many options. Um, but yeah, I think that Star Citizen, like I said, it's not for everyone, but it's for a lot of different people.
Mhm.
Because like what you saw in that gameplay trailer, and we talked about at the very beginning, this crazy capital ship action fighting. This is crazy. You know, you have like, 30 giant ships and 100 little ships all going at the same time. And like, while that scale is not in the game right now, there is capital ship combat. Like, there are missions where it is like 2 or 3 giant capital ships just hammering each other with lasers and torpedoes, and smaller ships, fulfilling their roles. But there's also people who it's just like, I've never fired a laser in my entire life in Star Citizen. I have only hauled cargo, or I've only done mining, and I live a peaceful life. There's people that like and there's, to maybe cap off some other things, like one of the things that has really become popular in Star Citizen and people say is the better experience is the 0 to hero runs. And that's where people like who have 100, 500, 1,000, $10,000 in the game, and they're like, what if I just bought a starter game package on a different account? And they spend more time on that account than their main account because there's more to do, there's more to work towards. And it's like, yeah, what if I just went from like mining rocks with a little hand miner, and then I bought a little truck that could do mining, and then I mined with the truck, and then I can afford a spaceship that does mining, and then I could afford the bigger space mining ship, and then I can afford a cargo hauling ship that can carry all of my mines. And it's like, this is such a cool game. And it's like, in an alpha buggy game, the fact that you can go from all of this and it's hundreds of hours of content, that's pretty neat. And I think a lot of people are starting to realize that. And that's why I say, like, if you see a ship that looks cool and it's $60, $80, go for it. You'll probably have a really good experience, but you don't need anything more than that $45 ship. You really don't.
Well, I mean, and I think that that's a good discussion there, a good introduction to, because for all of the things that you can do, like the investment into like throttle and joystick, or all of the different possibilities within Star Citizen,
Mhm.
if this concept does not engage you, you will not enjoy the game. And if you go into it with the wrong expectations, you will be disappointed. And there is a way for this game, there's a way for you to quote unquote scam yourself into this
Sure.
game. You know what I mean? Like, there's a
Yeah.
way for you to expect that all of these things are going to make the experience better and sink this money into the game that you're personally not happy with. But that opportunity is everywhere. That's just being a responsible consumer thing.
Yeah.
You know, I think that the game does a good job of giving you an experience that seems to be one of a kind. It gives you a lot of ways to interact and to immerse yourself through the gameplay mechanics, through the world, through what they're doing that no one else is. A lot of great stuff there, a lot of great ambition behind this game. And I do think that there is something to be said about investing in this and being part of watching this develop. And I mean, maybe I would even say, like, if you have any dreams of being a video game developer, keeping an eye on the Star Citizen situation, joining that community, not the worst thing, because it feels like a unique microcosm of the gaming world. And that's awesome. I think that it's just, I think that's really all there is to it. And you have to decide based on what what you've been made aware of, whether or not this is an experience that you want to enjoy or want to interact with. But like I said, I don't think it's like a scam or anything. I think a $40 to $5 investment is not a huge ask in when we accept that gaming is a luxury, when we accept that it is an expensive hobby overall. Like, $45 is not a terrible investment for what you're getting. And At the end of the day, how many of us have paid $70 for a game on release, played 10 hours of it, and then never fucking went back?
Yeah.
You could do the exact same thing with this.
Yeah. And just like to throw that out there, on Thursday, and they do this periodically throughout the year, is there's a free flight going on. The game will be free and open to the public for about a week. And starting on Thursday, starting tomorrow, you can play the game for free and you can try it out. And there will be ships to test out, and you can rent stuff, and you can try it. And I think where the game is now, it is probably in a better state for the most part. That I do think they will get some retention off of this free fly event. Maybe they won't. But I'll say this almost as a closing little statement is when they brought in Pyro at the end of last year, which is the new star system. And I don't say this lightly, because like there's a few moments in video games where I'm like, this is going to stick with me. Like, this was really cool. The way that when you pulled up to the jump gate at the Pyro like gateway system, and you go through that wormhole, and like the whole like startup sequence of your ship getting ready to go, and like just the sounds, and then going through the wormhole, and it's an interactive experience. It's not like, you just, I'm going through. Like, you have to fly through this wormhole, and there's little like barriers and like anomalies you have to fly through, and the music is unbelievable. Traveling, like I did it the other day, going through it again, and I was like, this is still one of the coolest things I've ever done in a video game. Like, the first time obviously is going to be like the coolest, but like when I finish the jump, and that music finally swells and kind of comes out, and then you're in this like very dangerous pirate infested star system, and you're just like, I went through the most insane wormhole and I was controlling it the whole time, and now I'm in the pirate system, and I'm like scanning around, seeing if ships are ready to shoot at me, and I'm like, this is one of the craziest things I've like ever experienced in a video game. And like, it will always stick with me. And again, even if it shuts down tomorrow, like, I'll be like, one of the best things that ever happened in a video game was the first time I went from one star system to another in Star Citizen. And like, there's so many cool moments, but that was like the greatest thing.
I definitely feel like I need to carve out some time personally to give it a try tomorrow. And I think I feel like everybody should give it a try. Yeah. Like, in the sense that, like, again, you might not vibe with it. It might not be your thing, but it sounds like such an interesting idea. I just think the expectation is the other thing. It's the focus of the development team that I think needs to be reined in. And I think the expectations of the expectations of the community need to be reined in. If you can get to a place where, again, I feel like by this point, 14 years into its existence, you need to be able to accept that this could potentially be all that Star Citizen ever is. And if it were, would you be comfortable with that? Because with the amount of time and energy and money that has been invested into this project, it could very well be that this, and maybe with little minor adjustments and growth over time, but look at how much it's grown over the last, like you said, like 6 years. If that's the pace at which we're growing, I think you need to expect that could very well be functionally what the game looks like for the rest of its existence. And I think that if you're able to accept that, and again, I literally just spent $20, maybe $25, buying the entire Devil May Cry franchise, and that's not getting updated. There's no updates coming to that. So, like, again,
but it's also one of the greatest video game experiences of all time is just the Devil May Cry franchise.
So it is, but
that's an incredible value.
But my point is, so go buy it on Steam if you haven't. But the point is that you're paying $45 for an experience that will likely be ever expanding, but could be essentially what it is now for the foreseeable future. as they just kind of add more and more to the foundation that has been built. And I think we have all paid more money for less. And I think it sounds like it's a unique experience. Like I said, I just think you have to go into it with the right expectation.
Yeah, and even the short-term goals of Star Citizen right now are game changing. Like I genuinely feel that when they drop engineering, which is kind of like having someone that's not flying the ship or operating a gunner or a tractor beam, like handling the systems of the ship and making sure that everything's running well. And they've done play tests of that, and like some, like, they have what's called the PTU, the playable test universe, where they try new things. And it went over really well of like, this adds a whole level of depth, because one of the issues that if you play, and I'm sure we could play it this weekend or tomorrow or whatever, I think a lot of people end up sitting around in some of the multi-crew aspect of that, and this will essentially get rid of that, where it's like, if we do cargo missions, right, you know, either you could be flying or I could be flying, and one of us will be sitting waiting around until we can load the cargo and take it off again. Like, just be kind of sitting around, walking around, looking at how pretty the ship is, hopefully not falling through the ship and then getting lost in space. But I do think that when we have a system where it's like people are doing things, you could be Scotty. That's what engineering is going to be. It's going to be allowing people to be Scotty.
Damn it. You are like turning the corner towards selling me on this, just based on the, well, no, just based on the, like, the storytelling aspects that you can bake into your own playing of the game. As a narrative person, like the fact that we could be like, you bring me into the game as a cargo ship person, because that's what you do, and you teach me the mechanics of the game, and then as I'm playing, I'm like, well, this is bullshit. Who wants to work this hard? I'm gonna go be a pirate, and then I'm gonna go off and play the game kind of in my own style, and then we interact later, and it's like, man, you remember, like, we come across each other randomly, and it's like, oh shit, I remember when this guy taught me how to play, and he's doing this delivery mission, and now I'm pirating his ship. And like, I think that there are points for you to build your own fun within the game.
Yes. Like, one of the things that I have even thought about doing is, like, you could write, just from like a 2 or 3 hour play session, you could write short stories about what happened in the game. Like, even if it's like, you know, going, like, there is a ship in the game called the Mole, and it is a 4-person mining vessel, and the way it works is you have a pilot who has no control over the mining whatsoever, and you have 3 people who are in mining lasers. And then the nuance to this is 1 mining laser is fully enclosed and 2 mining lasers are exposed. So if you're on a planet or a moon that has harsh conditions, you'll need a specific suit to be in those. Or if you're in the vacuum of space, you obviously need a spacesuit to do that. And so, like, you kind of have these like ways of configuring these spaceships and crews so that you can kind of, like, you know, even just like being on Discord, like, I'm in the pilot seat. You and 2 other people are in the lasers. You've got to tell me which way to go. Like, hey, we can't hit the rock. I need you to bring the ship up. Bring the ship up. Okay, now it needs to be closer. And then someone else is scanning for more rocks and stuff like that. So, like, there's a lot of like very simple things that can be really engaging gameplay that is often, you know, railroaded by bugs and like annoying shit. But
and that's the big thing at this point for me. I'm like, you have the foundation of such an amazing experience. I feel like you need to rein in your expansion, deliver me this less buggy experience as you have it now. Get your engineering in there if that's really important to you, and then hammer out the bugs and give me these, even if it were just 2, give me these 2 systems and this world that I can start playing, building these stories for myself and my friends, interacting with this stuff in a way that I know is going to be stable. Because as cool as it is disheartening to be like, I took a whole year off because it was buggy as shit. I'm like,
Sure.
well, that doesn't make me want to play the game. I
Right.
want to play this experience that you're selling me, and you're telling me that there's a likelihood that I might just have to put the game on the back burner for a year because it's buggy as shit. That is the part that gets like that raises my eyebrows the most. But
100%.
but like you said, there are a million other things to do. We're making excuses by saying, yeah, but there's a million other things you could be doing during that time. Like, yeah, but at 14 years, I feel like I should have a foundation that is playable, and I'm not concerned about
If
bugs.
I'm being 100% honest, I genuinely love the direction, for the most part, love the direction that Star Citizen is going. I think that the direction is uh, really cool, and the idea of what it is becoming is really enticing. I would be equally as happy if they just said, we just want to make a really cool, really realistic space sim where it's basically DCS or Microsoft Flight Simulator in space, and you can get out and walk around. I would, and that game came out in 2016. I would be equally as happy if they would have stuck to their guns from the Kickstarter and said, we want to deliver the most realistic, um, and enjoyable spaceship simulator that they possibly could. And even if it was just one Star Citizen or Star System, I would still have enjoyed that. And there's part of me that wishes it, because one of the things was, it's like, if you buy the $90 fighter jet, you will, or fighter spaceship, you will only need that ship because that ship will be a game in itself, which is kind of how DCS works. Is it's like an F-18 is $70 in DCS, and an F-16 is another $70, but each plane takes hundreds of hours to even learn how to fly. And that was kind of the one of the pitches of Star Citizen that didn't come to fruition. They all kind of play the same now. But that being said, where they've taken that has been very engaging. So yes, I would have loved to have seen a Star Citizen that released in 2016 and was just updated and expanded on slowly. I would have been fine with that. But I'm also okay with them saying, we want this to be the most expansive, most one of a kind game that, like, what I think is crazy
You
is,
gotta shit or get off the pot eventually, though.
yes, but what I think is crazy about Star Citizen is in 2013, what they pitched was ahead of its time. And in 2025, it is still ahead of its time. And I think that's impressive. Is that
Absolutely.
what they have done, what they have able to sustain, is so many games have come and gone since Star Citizen was the inception of Star Citizen happened. And those games have come and gone and become outdated. And Star Citizen still to this day, there's nothing like it. And like, props where props are due, is no other game can say that right now. So I
Well,
think what Mama is saying in the chat, I think we should get a crew together
Yeah.
on this weekend, and I'll show you guys the ropes. We'll start an arena commander so you can blow up a couple times and not like deal with the annoying bullshit of like, oh, you blew up, time to go back to home base. Like, just get used to flying the ships and stuff like that. I think that'll be good. And
yeah, I
then,
say we make that a thing this weekend. We'll dive into Star Citizen, and we'll see. How is it? How,
you may hate it. You may
Yeah,
be like, this
like
is
we
the
might be
worst
like,
thing
this is
ever.
the stupidest, buggiest, slowest, whatever, and that's great. But I think that we have talked an awful lot about it conceptually. I think it'll be cool this weekend to try experiencing it and see if the ambition matches the experience.
Sure. I think that's total. I think that's totally and beyond fair, because I'm going to say this to wrap the whole thing up. The thing I want more out of Star Citizen than anything is, I want this to be a game that I can easily recommend to my friends, and it's not at that point yet. I have to have so many caveats and so many asterisks about Star Citizen that I can't be like, you should play Star Citizen with me. I have to be like, I need to know you really well before I even think about telling you about Star Citizen. And
Mhm.
I want the game to be at a point where even if it's in a buggy state where I'm just like, no matter what, if you jump in and it scratches that spaceship itch for you, you're gonna have a good time. That's where I want this game to be. And it's not there yet. And I'm hoping it gets there. I genuinely hope that by the end of this year, we are at that state. I hope and pray that they commit to what they said in January of we want to focus this entire year on making this a better experience for everyone involved. Um, and they have done some things to make that better. They have made changes that the community is up in arms about. Wah, wah, wah. Um, but they have made sweeping changes to make the game a better experience. They have made a lot of fixes to what the 4.0 code base broke, and it's in a very good state. I still do not believe it's in the state that I can easily recommend it to. So that's where I'm at with this game, and I'm excited for that day. And I think that day will be soon. We can go back 10 years from now and be like, remember when you said you think in 2026 the game will be ready? It's 2036 and it's still a piece of shit. Who knows?
And my final thoughts, I will just say I am always going to be a proponent of expanding capability, of chasing ambition, of trying something new. But my biggest thing is with transparency of what they're doing also comes transparency of like, again, you have at some point a commitment to your investors, to which in this case are your player base. Like you always have a commitment to your player base, you always have a commitment to your investors. In this case, they're one and the same. And I think that they need to really commit to what product they're making and sell that the best way that they can. But I am open to attempting to experience it myself, to seeing what I think of where it is. And like I said, at the end of the day, I will say I've paid more for less. And
well, I can't say that.
And if I've learned anything, it's that, like, you know, if I can help boost something that is attempting to push forward the industry, awesome. I think that's a great idea. But again, how much of that is happening? I don't know. You know, I think that the next 5 years are incredibly important to Star Citizen and to whether or not it loses a lot of faith with its consumer base.
Yeah. I think both are possible. And like I said, my biggest fear is that Star Citizen does fail because
damn it, there went the audio. Hold on. Your biggest fear is that Star Citizen will fail. You faded away again.
Okay.
There you are. You're back.
Cool. I think that if Star Citizen fails, like I said, I think it will be a detriment to the industry. I think it succeeding is, and it doesn't have to be a sweep away success, but it being a game that people can, like I said, easily recommend and has a good and healthy player base will be good for the industry because it will incentivize people to take their time with their games, to be more ambitious with their games, and hopefully learn from the mistakes of Star Citizen and say, you don't need to render every fucking bullet in the gun, you dumb piece of shit. But maybe we can take the time and effort and care with our video games instead of just procedurally AI generating everything. And that when you have very talented artists working on stuff and they take their time with their things, you get a better experience.
Yeah. Oh, damn it. What the frick? You get a better experience. There you are. You get a better experience.
Yeah. You get a better experience when you allow artists and developers to take their time and be passionate about what they're working on. And yes, there are trade-offs to that. Things take longer. When you take your time with things, they take longer. But it'll also be a better product overall, or has the potential to be a better product overall. And I want the gaming industry to learn from that. And if it fails, I think the gaming industry will learn their wrong lessons. I think that is an excuse for people to use of saying, this is why we have, deadlines and stuff like that. And I think deadlines are good when used properly. I think that, like, having someone like Chris Roberts stick to more deadlines and be, more vigilant about like, we promised this game at this point in time, it's 10 years later, what are we doing? Sure, that's not the case with Star Citizen, but I think with other developers, I think you have that opportunity for, if it's a success, if Star Citizen is a success, we will get better video games because of it. If Star Citizen is a failure, I think we will get worse games because of it.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I can see that. I really do think that with that, I don't think it will. I think it is a niche product, and I think that I think deadlines are important in the sense that Kojima doesn't put out Death Stranding if he doesn't deal with Konami for a while. And I mean that in the sense that, like, he could wax poetic for an eternity building a game like Star Citizen, but he learned how to function within a capitalist market based around deadlines and investors and consumers. And
he still
I feel
has
like
to sell Death Stranding.
Yeah, and I feel like Star Citizen is what an unhinged auteur does when he has no deadlines. And I think that's my only issue, is that I'm like, again, but Kojima's putting out product, and this is putting out really not much in the terms of scope. You know what I mean? Like,
if it's one of those things, if we had a magical time machine where I could show you the Hangar module and like Star Citizen Alpha 2.0 and then made you jump into 4.0, it would be so much easier to show you what has been done and what 13 years of effort amounts to. I think that would be great. We can't do that, so it's just got to be like
it. And maybe if it were like, this is Hangar module, which is a separate thing. This is Star Citizen 1. This is Star Citizen. If what you were playing right now was Star Citizen 4, which it essentially feels like it is, I think it would make more people would feel less like they're being scammed by the developers, because like, but if it started as Hangar schedule and evolved, but it's always been or Hangar module, but it's always been Star Citizen, I feel like it's like people just see developers dragging their feet on one particular project, as opposed to realizing that it is essentially 4 or 5 different projects, so
I don't
know.
And CIG could have and should have done a better job with a lot of that stuff. There's no getting around that. They have fumbled the ball in so many incalculable ways that I do not begrudge anyone who gave up on Star Citizen. You are totally valid for not wanting to put up with the bullshit of CIG and Star Citizen. But for like the people who have stuck with it, like myself, and people who have sunk more money and time into it than I have, all the respect in the world as well. It's like, I think we can have both things. I think, we're in a world where there's so many shades of gray and so many things can be true all at the same time. That like, like I can, the whole like, obsessive glazing and obsessive hating over stuff is just so strange to me, because like I can look at something like Star Citizen and be very positive about it while addressing all the bullshit that frustrates me with the game and CIG, but also not letting that get to me in a negative way, and not letting the experience I'm having like cloud me. I'm not gonna get on the internet and be like, AJ, you don't understand. Star Citizen is the greatest thing ever. If you don't like it, you're just dumb and don't understand it. It's like, no, like I can be like, you should play this game. There are aspects of it that I know you will like, and there may be aspects you don't like. And it's up to you as an individual to make that decision. And I just wish that more people could have that mentality, not just with something like Star Citizen, but stuff like South of Midnight, with stuff like, Starfield or Mass Effect. It doesn't matter. Like, just like, hey, sometimes this isn't for you. Adam Fall's not for everyone. That doesn't keep it from being a bad game or being a good game either. Like, it's just not for everyone. And Star Citizen is not exempt from that. So,
and I'm gonna wrap us up, and I'm gonna say, if it sounds interesting to you, experience it, especially during one of these moments, like these free flight or whatever that they do, like this weekend. Like, attempt, try it out. If you like it and it's for you, awesome. And if it's not, great. And it's going to still exist in the background, being changed and worked on. And so if you don't like it, you pay your $45, you don't like the game, you stop playing it. In a year, you go, I'm curious what Star Citizen is still like. It's still in my catalog. I might as well give it a try. Cool. You still don't like it? Oh well. I own games that I don't like and that I just don't go back and play. And at the end of the day, no one's holding a gun to anyone's head saying you have to buy this game, you have to play this game, it's going to be the greatest experience. It is what it is. And if it sounds interesting, give it a try. And like we said, I'm all for different experiences within video games, games that try new things, games that do new things. And we exist in a world now where early access games they're just a thing. And some games remain in early access for a long time, and Star Citizen is one of those. But we buy into it knowing those games are in early access. Just right now, one of the hottest games of 2025 on Steam is Repo, which is an early access game. Pal World is still considered an early access game.
Is it really?
It is still in early access. Even though you can, yeah.
I thought that was a full release, like day one.
Nope, it was an early access release. And but that's the thing, is so many games nowadays come out as early release games that I think we also just have to adjust the model and our understanding and perception of it.
Yeah. What is a released game? What is a fully finished game? Is Warframe a fully finished game? Is Destiny 2 a fully finished game? We call
is
them
Marvel Rivals a fully finished game?
Live service is what we call them, but where's the line?
Yeah. But I want to say thank you to Chase for bringing this to my radar in general, and for bringing this discussion to us. I think that was really cool. It is nice that it's not always shit I love. Sometimes it's cool to hear about other people's stuff, and I think that's great. I want to remind people that tonight we will be having another episode of Shit I Love with People I Like. My good friend Nikki, who is a writer, is going to be on tonight. We're going to discuss things like, I have some questions for her, like talking about the role of AI in writing, how to handle representation when you are not necessarily from that marginalized community. Should you do that? How do you handle that? Just general topics like that, as well as just talking about projects we've worked on, projects we enjoy, stuff like that. I think it'll be a fun discussion, and I really hope that people come into chat and really bring some good questions for us, because I feel like that's going to be essential to that particular discussion. But that'll be tonight at the usual 8 o'clock time. Chase, you're always more than welcome to join us on the live, or you're more than welcome to enjoy it from the...
I might join in the chat. There's questions I will have for her as someone who has always tried to dabble in writing, who has a 32,000 word fan fiction I've been working on for what if a Jedi who survived Order 66 got a really mundane job, and wasn't a Cal Kestis, wasn't an Obi-Wan Kenobi. It was just yeah, fuck this, I'm going on a mining ship, and I want to be left alone. So,
but yeah, awesome. I'm excited to hear her answers. I'm excited to give my answers. Because this is something that we're both pretty passionate about, and so I'm excited for that. So that'll be tonight. This weekend we'll be diving into Star Citizen, likely with a little bit of community behind it, trying out that. So I'm really excited for where things go in the future. Thank you as always to my co-host, to Chase. I appreciate you. Remind them all where they can find you.
You can find me at Forward Into the Black, primarily on TikTok, but I am also on Blue Sky, YouTube, and Twitch. Just don't use those as often. Obviously, you can find me here now every Wednesday morning at it'll be 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern.
Yeah.
think is how that works. um, and you can also find me every Thursday on the Pod Ones podcast talking about Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. We've been rewatching Andor, getting ready for Andor coming out next week, which is crazy. And then also on Friday, you can catch me on Diet in the Force talking about the new Star Wars book, Mask of Fear, which is a very highly recommended book to read. But yeah, that'll be mostly where you can find me.
All right, and if you guys are already here, you know pretty much where to find me. Primarily here lately, at the Dork Place, and then the Dork Place on YouTube and Dork Knight 619 everywhere else. But yeah, that's where you can find us. And yeah, I'm looking forward to a lot of projects. Next week will be a big week, with Andor dropping, Daredevil tonight, Andor next week. Claire Obscure drops on the 24th. That's the universe's birthday present to me, is Claire Obscure Expedition 33. I just wish that I was still 33, but anyway, thank you guys. We need to come up with some sort of actual sign off, but until then, I hope you guys have a great rest of the day, and we will see you tonight for another episode.